Okay. So, I have some more videos I want to check out today. First one on here is one I kind of wanted to hold off a little bit, but just because I was kind of waiting to see if more videos would come out on it, honestly. See if there was any updates before I did it, but it's been a few days, so. This is going to be The Day Before Keeps Getting Worse by Force Gaming, and let's take a look.
You can't make this.
Uh, let's.
You can't make this stuff up.
Much better.
Like, you couldn't have come up with this if you tried. It is the end of January. Right about now is when we were expecting to get a huge gameplay demo for The Day Before.
Yeah.
They teased this a few weeks ago, saying that after careful consideration and discussions with their leadership, they would be doing us the honor of releasing some raw gameplay footage, adding, "This footage will showcase a majority of the features and gameplay elements requested by our community and will provide a clear glimpse into the current state of development." That announcement was posted on January 15th by Wolf, who is the head moderator on The Day Before's Discord and Steam channels. Keep this name in mind, by the way, as we continue to go forward here.
Odd thing that it's by some dude named Wolf. Like, unless that's his real name and not like just his Discord name. Like, that just seems unprofessional from a company.
Now, like a lot of you, I was looking forward to this gameplay demo, honestly, with the hope that it would paint a clear picture of what to expect from The Day Before when it launches on March 1st. As covered ad nauseum in other videos here, there's just been red flag after red flag for both the developer and the game itself that has made me suspicious ever since its initial reveal. So I was genuinely excited for release, like for better or worse. If the game turned out decent or even good, awesome. I'm dying for a new next-gen zombie survival MMO, as are a lot of people given the game's wish list status. But if it turned out to be a disaster, like I've been led to believe, just as well. Like, bad games are fun to check out and talk about too. So I figured we're this close to release.
That and everything we've seen on it kind of indicates that it wouldn't be that bad of a game, so it's more likelihood it would have been, at the very least, a decent game. So
that a raw gameplay reveal is really going to give us a clear idea of which of these two realities we're going to land on. Well, we're not getting that raw gameplay demo. The game isn't launching on March the 1st. It's not even listed on Steam, and it might not even be called The Day Before for much longer either. What happened?
Jeez.
What has transpired in the past 24 hours? About midday on Tuesday, people began to notice that The Day Before had been delisted from Steam.
I heard about this.
It was no longer a page on the platform. You could still Google for The Day Before and find a cached link of the page, but clicking on it would just route you to the Steam homepage. Also, searching in Steam's database for The Day Before comes up with no results for the page either. This was kind of weird, but
I thought it was just a removal on Steam. I didn't realize the website was also taken down.
Supposedly was just a bug. Wolf, that head moderator we spoke about earlier, who teased the gameplay showcase, he posted on the Steam forums that this was just a bug due to a regular weekly maintenance that Steam does, and it would be resolved sometime soon. Unfortunately for that statement, the game was actually removed prior to Steam maintenance.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that doesn't even sound right.
The timestamps on SteamDB show that The Day Before's page and its related assets were removed at 10:25 p.m. UTC, which was roughly 30 minutes prior to Steam's maintenance beginning. But they could have still been related, right? I mean, 30 minutes, it's close enough. It's possible that it was a bug. Well, Steam maintenance concluded, and then several hours went by, and the game was still nowhere to be found. And then at around midnight my time, the developer Fantastic posted the following statement. "Dear fans, right before the release, Steam blocked our game page at the request of a private individual because of the name The Day Before. As you know, our game was announced in January 2021. At that time of the announcement, the Day Before game trademark was available. After the announcement of the game, the above-mentioned individual filed an application before us to register the game trademark The Day Before in the United States. So, What's next? Well, they say previously we were not aware of the existence of claims. I'm pretty sure that's false. We found out about this only on January 19th, 2023 when we received a complaint from him and a request to contact him. Now we find out the circumstances. We're definitely going to solve everything. Also, by the way, that gameplay demo that they were going to do, they can't do it until they sort this issue out. Also, as a result, they made the difficult decision to postpone the launch of the game until November 10th, 2023. They're going to focus on making the best game possible. Blah, 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 blah. Frankly, pretty much all of this statement is
Sounds
a
like
whole
BS.
lot of baloney, but more specifically, their excuse of just having learned about the trademark thing does.
It's also a case where it's like, I can understand them wanting to hold off on releasing the gameplay until they get sorted, because what are you going to entitle the freaking video if you don't even know the name of your game? But that shouldn't take anywhere near like November. Like, that's insane.
Doesn't hold water. And I say that with confidence because fortunately enough, the entire trademark registration process is available to the public. Let's take a look. Here is the timeline of trademark filings for the day before. So Fantastic announces their game in January 2021. At that time, like they said, the trademark for that name was available, but for whatever reason, they do nothing. Then in June, 6 months after the game is revealed, one Sunjae Lee files a trademark application for the name. Bear in mind, we don't really know who Sunjae Lee is and what, if any, association they might have with the developers or with the game.
Yeah, I mean, it also could be just someone who was just trying to realize they didn't do it and was like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of it so I can blackmail them. That technically could be what happened.
If they aren't associated whatsoever, they could just be filing a trademark for their own usage for some other media. Or, yeah, it could also be an attempt to snipe the name from Fantastic, who 6 months after revealing the game still hadn't sent in their own application. But whatever. The reality is, Sunjae Lee files for trademark June 2021. Then in January 2022, Fantastic finally submits their own application for trademark for the day before, 7 months after Sunjae Lee and a full year after revealing their game. In August 2022, Sunjae Lee's trademark was published for opposition, which from my lay understanding means at that point, presumably, Fantastic or anyone else could have stepped in and said, hey, no, we want that trademark. Evidently, Fantastic either knew nothing or chose to do nothing because come November 2022, Sunjae Lee's trademark for the day before gets approved. It is now official and on the books. That same month in November, according to the official US Patent and Trademark Office records, which we have access to, Fantastic receives an action notice that their trademark would not be going through. The reasons were a few. They received a partial refusal for some likelihood of confusion, probably with the trademark that is now currently official and filed. And they also had a few required amendments that they had to make. A lot of this is over my head. I am not an expert on trademarks or the process that this goes through, but to say that they didn't find out about this trademark issue until, let me check the notes here, last week, January 19th, no. According to official records, they should have known there was a problem last August when that notice of opposition for trademark was published.
Exactly.
If they didn't know then, they absolutely knew something was wrong when they got that notice in November. So circling back around to their statement of why they had to cancel the reveal of that raw gameplay video and also delay the game from March all the way to November, all had to do with this trademark that they were supposedly taken off guard by and only got notice of a few days ago. That is almost guaranteed to be false. They would just have to be completely oblivious to the process of trade.
It'd be incompetence to a degree that is unsettling if you were looking forward to this game. Like, if that is true on what they're saying, it's like, it is so bad, like in terms of like the people working there having no idea what's happening at all, that to expect anything out of the game after that point is weird, because it's like you guys couldn't even do the most simple part, which is getting the freaking name. Like like it's just ridiculous.
Marks that they're engaging with, which is certainly possible because it took them a full year after revealing the game to even apply for the trademark. Also, I guess bear in mind, they are not a US-based company, so maybe filing for trademark in the US wasn't at the forefront of their mind. Entirely possible. As we've covered in a lot of videos in the past, they don't exactly seem like the...
I would only agree with that if they weren't having like such success in the West. And they know they have success in the West. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be different if like this was a sleeper and no one really knew about this game, wasn't getting much attention. Obviously, that over there they'd be like, well, we're not even getting much attention. Why bother? But the amount of like it being on like Steam, like how did they know it was removed on Steam almost right away? Like they knew for sure. But like I said, I mean, it's not too big a deal. Like, but the problem is like the name changing is going to take you a year. Like that's the part that's like, no, I don't. I personally just do not believe you're that shit. Like, okay, so the game's going to be pushed back to November because you messed up the name process. To be fair, you have a Chinese company. Just freaking think of a new name. The name doesn't really matter to players. As long as it's not like really cringy or dumb, like it's whatever.
Most in tune business people. But honestly, I'm not here to cast disparaging remarks. I'm more interested in the facts, what's taking place, and what we should expect as consumers and people who have been keeping an eye on.
Like, I'm not going to be pre-ordering this game whatsoever. Like, I don't care what comes out after this. I'm waiting for the game to release, and I'll check out reviews and stuff on it. Because I really do not trust it.
On this particular game. Which segues me into the next bit. Remember Wolf, that head moderator for the day before, the one who posted the announcement of the gameplay raw reveal? Well, earlier this morning, they said the following. Those who wonder if the game is real, I'm wondering the same right now as well. Shortly after, they said nobody has seen gameplay. Wolf is the one who posts just about everything on the official day before in Discord channels. Like, again, far as I can see, going back to as early as early 2022, Wolf has been the one to post most official news and announcements on these platforms. And I gotta tell you,
that's gotta suck, man. You know that guy is super passionate about this. And stuff like this coming out, like it probably like hit him really hard.
If this person is saying that they are not sure if the game is real, that they have never to this point seen any actual...
Yeah, because you would think like if anyone, the person who would be the last like candle, like in a sense, like the last one standing to defend them would be this dude, in a sense. Maybe not like the very last, but there's crazy people. But I think he definitely would be one of the strongest supporters with the fact that he's like an admin on the Discord.
Gameplay. I don't know who else has to say it to you outside of the developer themselves that something is seriously amiss here. Which reminds me, that raw gameplay demo that we were supposed to be getting that's been postponed because of the trademark dispute, following the announcement of the delay of the game, Fantastic said, as for the gameplay video, we will consult with lawyers first and then we can publish it. Maybe there is some reason why an issue with the trademark of the name of your game would...
See, what they could do is just post it into Discord. I think the biggest problem maybe they're thinking is if they post it, they can't use the day before in the title, I'm assuming, which is also weird because YouTube isn't that into the copyright. Like, for example, like Force's game has the day before. There's a lot of videos that have the name the day before. As long as they're not saying their game is called the day before, I don't think they'll be hit with copyright, but that could be what they're talking about. I'm not sure. Like I said, I just don't trust it at this point.
Would prevent you from posting gameplay footage of the game, but it's not like they've removed the day before branding from their website, from any of their official social medias, from existing YouTube videos that are already published. They could edit the title and the name of the game. If having that name of the game associated to that gameplay was an issue, they could remove it at any point. I could go change any of my YouTube titles right now. It is really that easy. I don't quite know if I buy it. I don't buy it. Also, remember, this is the second time that they have pushed the game back a month prior to a scheduled release date. Originally, the day before was slated to launch in June 2022, and a month prior to that, on May the 5th, they posted a statement that they were switching to Unreal Engine 5, they needed more time, and they were delaying the game till March the 1st. Now, to me, that was at least understandable. Like, if you tell me you're swapping to a newer engine that'll make the game better, make it...
What was it? Ash is doing that as well, right? They started as Unreal 4, moved into Unreal 5.
Visually better, make it perform better, and you need another 10 months to make sure that it all works? Sure, I get that. But this, a trademark dispute that you supposedly only learned about last week, although public records say that you should have known about at least last November, if not back in August. For that, you're delaying the game 9 more months? What does the trademark dispute have to do with the preparedness of the game? It all just feels And that first announcement also kind of felt like a convenient excuse for a game that not doesn't exist, but clearly isn't ready in a
Yeah.
state that they want to release to.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like either like they barely put any work into it and it's going to be like basically in development hell.
Public. I've talked about and covered this game so many times, and I've gone over the same details over and over and over again. I am not going to rehash the developer's history here, other than to tell you they have a very poor record with games in the past. They've only released pretty much bad games that they took money for and then shortly thereafter abandoned. I'm not talking years after, I'm talking a couple of months after releasing a game abandoned. We don't need to go into all of that. My prior videos are still on the platform.
Yeah, I've seen those videos.
Check them out if you want. At this point, here's what I feel like is happening. If we're to try to take like a grand picture view of like what is the day before, what is going on, I think they ginned up a super narrow vertical slice for that first reveal trailer, got together all of these assets, they did some work, they bought some stuff, they maybe stole some stuff. I'm not making accusations, I'm saying it's within the realm of possibility given how good a lot of this stuff looked from a developer who really has never made a game that's looked good. But whatever, however they came about it, they had built not a full game but a level, basically using assets that they flipped or purchased from the Unreal Engine store or whatever, and they made a really pretty looking gameplay trailer, an amazing looking gameplay trailer, the thing that set off this entire freight train of what is the day before. From there, with time, they expanded upon it. They produced other areas, which we have seen in subsequent gameplay videos after that initial reveal. As they got closer to their first planned release date, they realized they needed more time. They couldn't put this on the store. It wasn't ready because they probably still didn't have a game at that point. Nothing that was fully functional, just enough.
That or like the scope of it was way, way, way bigger than they expected. Because based on like what they were trying to do, like it seemed like the development was quicker than even I expected. So I'm like, oh, it didn't surprise me when they delayed it the first time. And I didn't really exactly believe the whole Unreal thing. I'm not saying I didn't think they would do it, but I was like, honestly thought I was like, okay, they are doing Unreal, but I don't think that's the real reason why it was delayed. I thought it was going to get delayed way more. Like, it surprised me. So when this happened, I'm just like, okay. It's not even surprising at this point, but it's just at the same time, I don't think they're actually putting in resources into this. To actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, I'm drawing a blank. Fulfill the promises that they've made. So it's like New World, not New World. Well, New World in a way, I guess. But I was thinking No Man's Sky. But I don't think it's going to have that kind of redemption arc. But I do think the release is going to be similar.
To make some trailers with the few areas that they had. So that is when we got the first delay. Remember that the excuse for that original delay was that they were swapping to Unreal Engine 5, presumably to make the game look and play better. With every new gameplay trailer, the game has looked progressively worse. If you put them side by side, if you go the first gameplay trailer and then the second and then the third and then the fourth with all the little snippets that we had in between to the most recent gameplay trailer we got not too long ago, and then you take that first trailer and put it next to this newest trailer, they look like different games. The visual disparity is that much. And I've talked about this in prior videos. It's not uncommon phenomenon for a developer to have a
Who was the first one that did this? Was it Watch Dogs? I think. Where they released like trailers that look like stunning and the game comes out. It's like almost like a whole different game.
Target that they're shooting for, and then as they get closer to release for their actual game not to live up to that target, a lot of times it's because, hey, we want the game to look this good, but if the game looks this good, it runs like crap. So to make sure it doesn't run like crap, we're going to make it look worse but perform better. That is not uncommon. Happens all the time. Take a look at Ubisoft trailers. It's very, very, very common occurrence. But in this particular instance, I really think it's because that initial trailer wasn't a game at all. It was just a level, for lack of better terms, because I'm not a game developer. It was just a level that they constructed to make a trailer. They had not built out a game. They had nowhere close to a game at that point.
There's no foundation.
So they get close to that first release date. They realize we cannot release this. It will be a disaster. We push it back. What's the excuse? Unreal Engine 5. Despite Unreal Engine 5, the game keeps looking worse and worse. Whatever. That brings us to today. They clearly realize they still don't have enough time, and now we sit here with delay number 2. What is going to happen in the coming months? I'm going to say...
But I don't think it's why they don't just be straight up with people. Like, look, this game was much bigger in scope than we expected. We are gonna keep working on it until we feel like the game is ready to be released. We do not want to release it in a poor state or something like that. Like, I've never seen a case where the game gets delayed because of reasons like that, and then everyone gets mad. Everyone's just like, okay, fine, you know, keep working on the game. Like, just maybe like Ashes of Creations, like release some things here and there, so players at least know you're still working on it.
By the time the day before releases, because I do still think it is possible that this thing releases. I'm not delusional. Many issues as there are, this is still a company that has made and released games. Small games, ugly and buggy games, games that don't perform well, and games that they abandon. Yes, 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 and yes. But they have still released games. They didn't just appear out of the blue and say, hey, we made a game. It's their first game we ever made. They have made games. They have a game on the store right now. I do think they're making a game, but I think when it releases, if that's next November, it's going to probably be barely functional, ugly, buggy, and completely unoptimized based on the fact that how many more signs do we need, I guess, is really what it comes down to. And if nothing else, it is absolutely going to way under-deliver on the original sales pitch of that first trailer and what they were calling an open-world zombie survival MMO. I would also expect that sometime between now and the November release, assuming we don't get yet another delay, between now and then, expect to see 1 or 2 more new games or new products were made by Fantastic that they want to push out there, because that's basically what's come of this so far. A lot of people say, how is this a scam if they're not even making any money? Like, what's the point of going through all of this effort to not, they're not taking pre-orders.
Get attention for
what I mean?
something
They don't
else.
have a Kickstarter page. What are they doing all this for? 2 things come to my mind. Number 1, getting funding from investors. And number 2, to promote their other products, because they have, over the course since the game was first revealed, drummed up all this hype around the game, and then had these big announcements that were supposed to be about the day before turn out to be about a new game that they were making in the case of Prop Night, or an application for teams working remotely in the case of the Continent app, the most recent fiasco.
Yeah, I saw that one.
To sum it all up, this has been
Everyone was like, what the hell's
crazy.
going on?
I don't know what else to say. Absolutely crazy following the story. And I was very excited for March 1st. I was looking forward to see whatever the day before was actually going to be in reality once we had a playable build that we could download and boot up on our home computers. Now it looks like we're going to have to wait until November, presuming that they deal with these trademark issues and don't change their name and aren't also developing other games or apps, which I think they probably are, and presuming they don't delay again out of November. Either way, I don't think they could get any lower, but I'm setting my expectation even lower than it was a week ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely the case for me, at least. Like I said in the beginning, like, I'm not going to be pre-ordering this game. I don't care what comes out after this. It could be like some crazy gameplay and like everything looks finished. Like, I still, at this point, like, I wouldn't trust them at all. And at least it depends on what they like, the starting price. If it's like $40, then maybe, but I have a feeling they're going to try to release it for 70. And it's just going to, like you said, be super incomplete, basically like a trash game. And yeah, I'm just not looking forward to it anymore, to be honest with you. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back. Okay. Let's move on to the next video here. Man, day before. Such a letdown, but it is what it is. Alright. So Classic Plus has more problems than you think. Problems. I mean, I did think there's a lot of things they can make it better, but one thing.
Classic Plus has more problems than you think.
As we progress through Wrath Classic, I can't help but notice a rise in interest for the vanilla version of the game beginning to grow within the player base.
Just like
I
the
think
original.
a lot of players would happily jump back to a vanilla version of the game given good timing and a concept which looks promising.
Yeah.
But as
I agree.
usual, Blizzard
Yeah,
holds
I
all
would do
the
it too.
cards here. And of course it's worth a mention, we don't know what's after Seasonal Mastery right now, and Classic Plus is totally just a community wish at this point in time. Yet while
That's how
Seasonal
Classic
Mastery is
started,
soon to wind up, we can't
Yeah,
help but
exactly.
ask, what's next? Another season with more new ideas, a no changes fresh, or perhaps something much more ambitious? Since the early days of Classic, players have speculated what will come when the final boss of the expansion falls over, and everyone is there in their near-abyss gear twiddling their thumbs waiting for the next big content patch to drop. One of those
Yeah.
ideas
Fuck
has
yeah.
always been Classic Plus, an unofficial term from the players broadly meaning Classic, but instead of expansions to move us forwards into
Seasons.
TBC and beyond, there are new major content patches added instead, or just
I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Like, I'd be straight up. It would really surprise me if they did something like that. Just because it's way harder than just doing like unique seasons.
up
I think major content patches and then also raids that might give slightly better gear. It's actually easier to make better classic gear than like better retail WoW gear because you're dealing with a lot of cases just with percentages.
He's right, but I still think like if I was on the classic like team and where your job is to try to make people play the game or more people play the game, I would lean way more into adding mechanics and changing up things in the existing game versus creating new content for that game because I think retail already does that to an extent. So I don't think that's really necessary. I think what Classic WoW has, it has a ton of content. I think they could do more with it, like with the existing content.
Like 1% crit is 1% crit. 2% is 2%.
You know, it would be cool if there was a season in WoW that had like the Paragon system from like D3, Diablo 3, like where once you hit max level, you can keep leveling, and then you could increase like your crit chance, move speed, crit damage, all that, like basically your stats and stuff, little by little with each Paragon level. I think that would be really cool, where it eventually, like, if you did it for a long time, you could literally like solo raids in that server or in that season. I think that would be really interesting.
updates to the game in the spirit of Classic. What if we never crossed the Dark Portal? What
That or like a season of like tier sets where they just try to add tier sets to like every dungeon, even if it's like it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like to me, like seasons, they shouldn't like go with like things that make a lot of sense. If it does it sound fun, try it. Like I would really wish they did that because I would actually go back and play this game like a lot more.
What if there were new raids or new dungeons and anything else you can think of? After all, we have retail, we have Classic WoW as it currently is, which is chugging along through the expansions. Give it 18 more months from now and we'll be in Cataclysm Classic, I expect. Vanilla ran
boy.
its course faster than it did originally, so did TBC by some 6 months, and Wrath will probably be a little bit shorter overall too.
Sure.
These are the places to re-experience expansions as they once were, so why not turn seasonal World of Warcraft into something different? Something entirely innovative with new content phases and regular updates. Why
Like I said, I don't think they're gonna do that. Like I mean, maybe they would, because obviously Classic is way more popular than I think they even expected. But at the same time, I just, from a business perspective, as someone like, I don't know how to explain it right. It's like, okay, you got to make choices on getting the most bang out of your buck, basically, right? So to get players hyped about WoW, yes, content would work, but also what would work is changing up the way the game plays. I know a lot of people would go back to WoW if they did something like I mentioned earlier, like a Paragon system of sorts.
Why not go all in and do Classic Plus? Well, the pessimist will say it will cost money, time, and effort to work on something new, so
Not the pessimist. That's the freaking obvious argument.
obviously that's not gonna happen, is it? And
I
yeah,
think it would probably cost less money to do classic content versus like retail WoW content.
It would cost less money, but it would also generate less money. So that's not much of an argument.
I mean, it's just lower poly. There's less stuff to do with the game. The game is simpler. Why? Well, simply like you just don't have to make things as detailed.
is going to be a part of that, to be honest. Why take an unnecessary risk when you can just re-release expansions that you know people will come back for? But I think there's actually more to it than that. There's a bigger picture of problems that need.
And I want to say it now, like I don't think that new content for like vanilla WoW or classic WoW is bad. I think it would be really cool. I just don't see them doing it. Like, just, I don't know if like being pessimistic is the right word. I don't think that's the right word. I think being realistic would be a better word. Because this is Blizzard we're talking about. They don't exactly have a track record of like, what would the players really like? Let's do that no matter the cost. You know what I mean? Warcraft 3 Reforged. Don't really need to say more after that.
Need to be addressed if Classic Plus were to actually be taken seriously.
Okay, let's
and
see
for
it.
me, these are my 3 biggest problems with Classic Plus. But first, a word from today's sponsor,
right.
Gemstone Legends, a high fantasy puzzle style RPG game rated 4.6 stars on Android and
think I've
almost 5
seen
on iOS. You can
this
download
one.
the game and try for
Probably
free
another,
using
like,
the
Shadow
link in the
Legend.
description or the QR code on screen. Gemstone Legends has a puzzle style element of game, but also hero collection with more than 200 heroes from 8 different factions and 5 different tiers. Every hero has a unique set of skills which can be a game changer for strategy for each battle. During the puzzle battles, you can use epic combo attacks in
Where's
your
the
tactical
gameplay?
sense, solving match 3 puzzles and conquering powerful monsters to build your empire.
Big
And there's
Bejeweled.
dragons.
Bejeweled?
Who doesn't like dragons? Gather
Yeah.
clans as heroes and start an epic puzzle
What is
adventure
this?
in a high fantasy RPG open world. Fight in PvP modes and align with other dragon riders to compete in guild wars.
Okay.
There's even a Discord server where you can stay up to date with the game. I'm in the game under the nickname Will E. Download the game for free now on both Android and iOS and get started
course.
today
Pretty
by
good game,
using the
guys.
link in the description or the QR code on
Yep.
screen. You'll also get a special starter
Alright.
pack worth $50 by using my link, including 500,000 coins, 300 gems, 10 mana elixirs, 10 healing elixirs, and a 4-star hero, Annika. Many thanks to Gemstone Legends for
Oh, you get
sponsoring the
her.
video today. Back to WoW.
Bejeweled with
The first
ghosts,
point
Manny.
is, I've already done the content. Let me explain what I mean here. There was a time in World of Warcraft where it wasn't really known how far the game would go, what would be the next major content patch, and even whether there were going to be expansions. On a BlizzCon panel from 2007, I found something which really spoke to how Blizzard did content back then. Plan more than we can build, expect change, adapt. There wasn't just content ideas for the next patch or patch after that, there were just ideas that various devs wanted to be part of the game, things which
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, anybody could have seen that because, like, remember how they had, like, they had, like, the Dragon Isles in Classic WoW. They had, like, Karazhan Crypts. They had
Yeah.
all of these things, like, Hydra.
That were just like empty.
Like, yeah, that's, of course,
Yep.
what happened. And then also, like, apparently they were supposed to have, like, some, like, Abyss raid that was underwater and Cataclysm.
Oh,
and that ended
yeah,
up
yeah,
just not
yeah.
happening.
they had worked upon
Emerald
and
Dream,
iterated upon. It was more of a question of where does this best fit within the game. After all, World of Warcraft in its early days had pretty heavy inspiration from the story of the RTS games to lean on. There were hours of cutscenes, cinematics and story twists to draw from. It just had to be the right time to introduce each one. In
Mhm.
fact, in its early days, the level cap of vanilla was intended to be 70, and so much content that would be introduced with the expansion was either planned or actively was already being worked on.
Yeah,
Here's
they
another
already-
bit from these
They had a vanilla WoW version of the Outland. even.
BlizzCon 2007 panel. I know the quality's mega scuffed. I couldn't find better online, unfortunately, but you can make out at the top that this was the
Dead
dungeon
Mines.
list as planned from
Shadowfang
April
Keep.
2003. That's pre-vanilla launch, and right at the bottom you can see the Black Temple as the final dungeon. It wasn't that content was necessarily cut from vanilla, it just wasn't used, and it was waiting its turn. It's no wonder that Karazhan is located in Deadwind Pass, by the way, a strange place for an expansion raid to still be in vanilla, don't you think?
Yeah.
This
I think that was
location and
good.
raid was in development long before TBC dropped. In fact, this dungeon would have almost put Blackrock Depths to shame, estimated in its earliest version to be as large as Lower Blackrock and Upper Blackrock Spire combined, and having a load time of 30 minutes. Tons of
Holy
work have been done
fuck.
on the interior.
Load time of 30 minutes? I just don't see that. Like 30 minutes seems like an over exaggeration. Because anything above a 3 minutes, like I could imagine 10 minutes. Because 10 minutes for a load time is pretty insane.
The layout, texturing, and I have to say the early versions, especially from the outside, look particularly ominous.
Yeah,
Not
that looks
forgetting
really
the
cool.
Karazhan crypts either.
I had no
a
idea
series
about
of
that. I'd never seen
spooky,
that before.
sprawling tunnels below the tower,
Yeah.
housing endless stone walls and restless bones. Again, an area that had begun to be fleshed out from a level design point of
Yep.
view, and it was partially used
Sunken
during
Temple
the
was like
Karazhan
that too.
achievement in TBC, but never saw the proper light of day as its own piece of content. Mount Hyjal is
Yeah,
another
all of
one
this
to
stuff
highlight.
should be in Classic WoW, like Classic WoW Plus. Like, add all of this stuff, give us a Scarlet Crusade raid, stuff like this.
In vanilla, it had a raid
That
instance
could be cool.
portal
I
connecting
just
it to the Dark
have a
Whisper
feeling it just
Gorge in
won't
Southern
happen.
Winter Spring. It was another zone with a bunch of work that had been put into it, which just never released in vanilla. Again, we saw it in a lot more detail during the Burning Crusade as a raid, and eventually reimagined as a zone during Cataclysm. Even the Hellfire Peninsula had work put into it during
There it is.
vanilla.
Yep.
Again, it was planned to be a later game zone
I
that
like
would
those,
eventually ship with
those
TBC.
mushrooms.
You can see tons of landscaping and floating mushrooms
gives me
dominating
Oblivion
the area
vibes.
in these early screenshots.
mushrooms.
Though at some point it was decided that instead of more and more major content patches, there would be a full-on expansion. Many of these unused ideas were roped together and bundled up for World of Warcraft's first foray into a totally new world. This would release in 2007 as the Burning Crusade, to a huge amount of success. And as we know now, Black Temple, Karazhan, and Mount Hyjal ended up being raiding content, and Hellfire Peninsula was the starting zone. I know this, and we all know this, because many of us have done them in TBC or TBC Classic,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's what I mean when I say I've already done the content. Tons of things that were at an idea stage were later used in some form. Even the Dragon Isles were at a
I think it wouldn't really be a big deal to do it over again if the game had a few little interesting nuances with leveling and it was a very dense and populated area where you could do dungeons and do other kinds of cool shit.
Yeah.
concept stage during vanilla, and that's
Like it'd be cool if like they just say in a season, like there's like several things they can do with seasons. Like just off the top of my head I thought of a few, but it's like I think one of them would be fun is just having like way more world bosses. Like get the bosses from dungeons and raids and put them out in the world. Just for fun. Oh. Second.
just dropped as the latest retail expansion. The thing is, as much as I like Karazhan, do I want to do it again at 60 with the same layout and the same bosses
No.
and the same
No.
loot that I already know? I'm not really sure that I do. What if
Only if there's extra things to it. Like I don't know. Like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but what he's saying, like in terms of like the layout and stuff, like I don't think that would make much of a difference for people. Like if you kind of changed out the layout, it's like it'd be interesting like the first 2 times you do it, if that.
Well, absolutely not. I mean, like, they would have to reimagine the entire thing. Like, obviously, you should have some of the same bosses. Like, Moros should be in the new Karazhan. Let's see.
Yeah, they're not going to do it though. Like honestly, I think they're like fan fiction what they believe, you know, what they would want in a sense, which I don't really think is a problem, but I think being realistic about it, like it's not going to solve or do anything by like give us content in WoW Classic. It's just I just don't see it happening, man.
Like, I think a good example of this, right, is like they did already reimagine Karazhan. They did it in Legion.
Yeah.
And I think the Legion reimagining of Karazhan, the return to Karazhan raid, was
pretty
fucking
cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was really well done. There were some things I didn't like about it, but overall I thought it was really well designed. So it's like, we already have precedent of doing this and it being good. Just do it again.
Karazhan was different.
Well, they did it as a content patch for the retail game. That's what I mean. Like, the things they're asking for, if they were going to do it, they would do it for the retail game. They wouldn't do it for Classic WoW, is all I'm saying.
Maybe that could work instead. During Legion, Blizzard reimagined Karazhan as a two-part mega dungeon, which kept aspects from the past while making it fit better into the newer game.
Exactly.
I think one of the draws of a Classic Plus for me isn't just seeing stuff that we come to see eventually, but more something new, unexplored. Hyjal, as it's set out in vanilla, has never been a zone, for example. What if that was to happen? If people came into a Classic Plus finally and just felt as though they had already done it and already seen it, that would be quite a letdown, I think.
Yeah.
The second point I want to get into is,
I don't know. I mean, that they did it. A lot of the people who went to play Classic, when Classic WoW released, like, those people had played the game before. Let's be fair, it's not like a ton of new players who had never played the game. I would say over 60%, maybe even over 80%, were people who had played the game prior. So to me, that's not much of an argument.
is where does the new content go? Where does it fit? This is kind of a tangent to the question of how would servers be released. I'm assuming if it would happen, they would be fresh, which makes the most sense to me. World of Warcraft is always fun when you start from square zero, but then you have to ask, if there is new content, where does the new stuff go? Imagine the scenario. Classic Plus is here. Fresh servers are out. Mega hype. New content, new class tuning, new dungeons, new raid, new everything. Okay, so first we have to get to level 60.
Yes.
Oh, wait. Before we get to level 60, are we going to be doing any new dungeons pre-60?
Yes, absolutely. They would have to reimagine a lot of the dungeons and make them more interesting.
So that's what I was saying. Like, it's just not worth the cost of that. Like, Asman thinks, I don't know if he knows much about game development, but like, the models themselves aren't like the expensive part a lot of times. That's usually not that bad. It's usually like, it's everything involved. It's not just the models.
But also, like, not make them, like, I don't think that they should go and make Classic WoW harder. I think the reason why Classic WoW is popular is because it's not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do
for
that.
a lot of people.
Like, just make the dungeons more interesting, add in a few nuances to them, add in new loot, maybe a couple of optional hard mode bosses, kind of, like something similar to that, and just do that, and I think you'd be fine. That's all they really need to do.
I mean, what's the point, right? You don't replay dungeons again and again pre-60 unless they are the best for either XP or gold farming, which means the new content kinda has to be better than the existing content, or it's going to be instantly run one time by people questing and then not seen again. Does that...
Not necessarily. So, for example, if you added a couple of pieces of gear that increased your experience, and you could only get those pieces of gear inside of the dungeon, and it would increase your experience for, like, 20 levels or something until, like, they're, like you're level 40 and it's only level 20. I think that would get people to continue doing and farming the dungeons. Yeah, there are a lot of ways that you could make this work.
I mean, similar to what he just said, though. Like, Asman just did a roundabout way of doing it, is make it where it's worth your time. Whether it's from leveling a perspective, gear perspective. It's the same thing. Like, make it worth your time to do these new dungeons, and people will do them. But at the same time, like I said, I'm just stuck on this like thought. I'm like, think of like almost every game that has seasons. PoE, Diablo 3, mostly RPGs, I guess. But like, it's usually not like really new content that they release. It's pretty rare that they do releases in terms of content. Usually they just do something interesting. Like, I'm trying to think of like what they could do, and I thought of like another thing where maybe, anytime you beat a boss, they have a chance of dropping an item that lets you summon like a harder version of that boss for even more loot, or a stronger version of whatever loot they normally drop. I think that'd be pretty cool too. But I'm always in the perspective of how can we make the content that's already there fun again? Kind of give it a fresh coat of paint in a sense. Because I just don't see them adding content, and I don't want it to where, people keep asking for it, and Blizzard's like, well, we'd rather just release the game, the games as is, versus adding content. So basically, I'm trying to steer it away from that topic only because I don't see it happening. So I don't want Blizzard to think like, oh, this is what they want, but we don't really want to do that. So ignore them in a sense. In that way, when the conversation doesn't go to adding mechanics, which is much easier, at least in my opinion, because they've already changed a lot of mechanics in Classic WoW. So it's like, to me, I don't see why that would be more difficult than adding content. Because content is usually also adding mechanics to it, right?
Warrant the development time when it could be put into something at endgame instead? What about a new zone? If it's for leveling it again, people will do it once per character, if it's worth doing. There are some gaps in vanilla questing, I will say that, so maybe there is space to beef up the leveling journey a little bit. How about raids? Imagine phase 1 is...
I think if they were going to beef up the leveling journey, what I'd want them to do is like kind of reimagine Deadwind Pass to be like in between like Duskwood, or like in between like Red Ridge Mountains and Duskwood, or in between Duskwood and Stranglethorn Vale. And just add in also, like, you don't even need to add in a new zone for leveling, just add in better quests.
Yeah.
Add in like 10 more quests in every zone. Done.
I agree.
Add in rare spawns that give you a bunch of experience whenever you kill them. Add in something like that.
Yeah,
just
those are all good ones.
And
I was actually thinking about that was add some like interesting quest chains that like are really more into the lore.
How many months of that do we have to do before we get a new bit of content? What if there was a new raid and it came between Molten Core and Blackwing Lure? Well, it has to raise the bar for gear a little, so again, it's worth doing. Maybe if we throw in a few bists, weapons, trinkets, whatever it may be in there, that'll get people going back to it. But then suddenly, oh no, Blackwing Lure itself has come out, in addition to Molten Core, the new raid, and Onyxia. And on a weekly basis, then you would be doing Onyxia for the tier head and the quest turn-ins, Molten Core for Eye of Shadow, leaves, bindings, and all the other items in there, Blackwing Lure for your rejuve gems, your DFTs, and whatever else, and the new raid for the BIS items in there too. That's a lot of raiding, but then AQ40s come out, and suddenly about 90% of the old gear is now irrelevant, but you're still going to have to do them on raid night because there's like 3 BIS items which everyone in the game wants, because that's how classic itemization works.
Which is
until Nax is out, of course, and then your raid is tired of doing an entire world tour every week. Also, Nax gear is kind of an insane step up over everything else. And
Nax gear was disgusting. Like, it was just so much better than everything else that came before it. There was like a handful of pieces of gear before then that was better, but in general, it was fucking insane. I think that what they should really do is look at making a few more raids in between that, make more dungeons. Like, having the baseline raiding gear, why don't you just change some of the gear? Change Shadow Strike. Change the fucking...
That was actually going to be one of the things I was going to mention, was maybe tweak the tier sets to be, just to be different.
Mace, Finkel's Mace from Molten Core. Change Spinal Reaper. Spinal Reaper is a garbage weapon. Nobody ever uses it. Well, then change it and make it something better. Add in new items that are more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, make
that actually would be
Strike
much
useful,
easier than
exactly.
adding like dungeons or raids.
That's vanilla with hypothetically only one more raid tier added. The alternative
like,
is...
I think that, like, for example, right? Like, let's say you have a Scarlet Crusade raid, and after you get Corrupted Ashbringer, you then go and you can purify your Corrupted Ashbringer after you clear the Scarlet Crusade raid. That would be fucking awesome.
that new raids are added after Nax, which solves absolutely nothing. Because if servers are fresh, that's 12 or however many months of no new raid content up to Nax. And if it's not fresh, players will go into the new raid with 25 BIS-geared warriors and absolutely delete it. And all the raid content prior to the newer
This is actually a very good point, because yeah, if you give people the ability to get a bunch of these characters geared out, you either have to design it to where you need 20 warriors, or you have to design it to where 20 warriors will clear the raid in 20 minutes. to just balance classes. I think they should do that. Like, I'm a
Yeah,
very big
I agree.
advocate of balancing classes in a very subtle way in Classic Plus. I think they should already be experimenting in this right now. Like, for example, I think they should give...
It kind of surprised me they didn't do it for the classic. Like, I know they did some things to like quality of life stuff, but it's like there was such a big disparity in classes, especially in DPS, that it just blew my mind that they didn't even look at it.
Ret Paladin's Crusader Strike. I think they should give, let's see, they should probably give Moonkin something to get more mana return or something like that. They should give Shadow Priest something that makes them a little bit more interesting, where it's like not like a debuff cap, same as Affliction Warlocks.
Oh yeah,
They need
debuff
to
cap
make
should have been
different
removed.
specs more viable, and they also should balance the other specs and make them better.
Raids would also kind of be dead on arrival. So where does the new content fit here? That's the question I really don't have an answer for. Whatever happens, there would be very clear downsides to it, I think. But maybe just getting something new is worth it all the same. Those
Yeah.
are my two main
That's what I would
concerns so
say.
far. Number one, I've already done the content.
Try
Number
it.
two, where would the new content go? And number three for me is about how World of Warcraft content is consumed, how the game is designed, and the development time that goes into creating new things for the game. So if you've played World of Warcraft for a while, you'll know what the end of expansion life cycle looks like. Sometimes it's up to, or in certain cases, over 1 year of literally nothing new. With Classic, we know the devs are building the game on...
I think what they should do is they should look at what made RuneScape and OSRS have evergreen type content. And this is my opinion as somebody who is not a expert in this, but one of the things that made RuneScape and not EverQuest, I forgot the other example I was going to use. Oh yeah, Vanilla WoW. Like, look at why they were popular. Massive, super long quest lines. Things like the Mage Tower, where they have like that Inferno thing in OSRS, and like these different things that you have in the game, to where like these are pinnacles of accomplishment that you want to build your character up to be able to overcome. So it's not like just raiding; it's also like singular player overcoming content. And it's like you get gear from raiding, and then you use that to do like a Mage Tower type thing. Yeah, the Infernal Cape, right? And that's the kind of stuff that keeps the game alive. Yeah, good solo content. And again, like, I know this seems like really weird and like counterintuitive, but yes, I think solo content is super important for an MMO.
Yeah.
To a more modern system, and that unfortunately they can't just boot up Wrath of the Lich King.exe and it magically all works. Hence all the beta and PTR testing and brand new bugs and weird things going wrong occasionally.
My favorite part is whenever bugs from the original game happen, like auto attacking Saffron through the block, the ice block, and then the explosion's still killing you. This happened in Vanilla WoW, it happened in in Wrath, and it's still happening. I don't know how they can't fix this. I'll be right back.
And I've noticed that the more WoW expansions have gone on, there tends to be more and more lead time between the new major patches. Whatever's going on in the background, it's just taking more time. On top of this, World of Warcraft content has a very short life cycle, and this is much more noticeable in the earlier versions of the game. This is what happens when you progress vertically as new content is stacked on top of one another. I will say this was less the case during Vanilla. You wanted to go back and do the old raids, but in TBC and especially Wrath, there's just a lot more of do the current tier and then you're kind of done for the week. Add on top,
I've always thought that it was good for older raids to still have some good items. There's always going to be like a negative and a positive with almost everything, but in general, I think that's a good thing.
for this, that the content being added has to raise the bar in one way or another, or it just won't be worth doing. And if there's something new, they have to make sure it's actually worth going to. I see many cases where Classic Pluses mention that Blizzard should take inspiration from the success of Jagex with old school RuneScape,
Yes.
which in theory is great. It's proof that new content can keep a game fresh and bring a whole new player base into the game and interested for years to come. But the similarities between old school RuneScape and World of Warcraft stop at them being called MMORPGs. If Molten Core was a raid in old school RuneScape, you'd have to defeat 40 servants of the Fire Lord outside of the instance before you could gain access. Each time you will be able to solo it, all the good drops will be 100 times rarer, everything will be tradable, the auction house is global, there's no weekly reset, and you can just spam it non-stop, and you would be able to do it with a team if you wanted. On top of that, old school rune.
Okay.
I think for a season, why
Sounds
not
good.
try it?
Okay. Yeah, let's try that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, why not?
RuneScape doesn't really even have a concept of endgame which is clearly defined. You don't get level cap, then start playing. The actual cap in terms of having every skill at maximum level is not something many people have. Content there can remain relevant for years as nearly all gear is tradable. You still have reasons to go back like gold farming, collection logs, Iron Man accounts where they can't trade, and so on and so forth. And leveling there takes considerably longer, so people do invest in different tiers of gear, and you're going to be getting
That's saying
so much
something.
more use out of
Vanilla
them.
took
An
a while.
example of this is within 1 year of launching, Jagex realized that old school RuneScape wasn't going to survive off pure nostalgia, and they started releasing brand new content. One of the first big new updates was in January 2015. This was about 2 years after launch. This was Zulrah, yes.
Again, solo content. Like solo content that players in MMOs can benchmark themselves and say, I'm better than you because I can beat this guy and you can't.
Yeah.
Zulrah is 8 years old, a solo boss that added a bunch of new items and mechanics to the game. Today, it still drops items that people would want to chase, and it's an okay gold farm, but it has been nerfed many times over. The point is, this is true across so many of RuneScape's updates. When Ulduar drops in Wrath, am I gonna do tier 7 again? Realistically, I think so, yeah, I'll still be doing Malagos and Sartharian's Lair, but just not full clears anymore. I haven't done a single Burning Crusade raid during Wrath, and during TBC, I didn't do a single full Classic raid either. It's just
I don't think you should have to. I think that expansions are resets.
I agree.
I think in general, you should be able to use the gear at the
beginning of the expansion, like to level up, do dungeons, all that good stuff, like make it easier. But I really do not think you should make it where like the raid gear from the previous expansion actually is as good as like the new raid gear. Like that to me is just, I don't know. Could play Guild Wars 2 if that's what you're into, because that's exactly what that is.
the end of the expansion to progress in the raid in the new expansion, kind of like how Burning Crusade, like vanilla went into Burning Crusade. But I don't think that you should have to go back and raid ZG or something like that when it's Burning Crusade, unless you're looking for a mount.
Yeah. Or transmog.
It's not how World of Warcraft works. There's very little reason to go back.
Yeah.
Sure, there's a few mounts such as Rivendare's Death Charger from Stratum
Sure.
Dead, or these Zul'Gurub mounts that may be worth chasing
Yep.
for some collectors, but in the latter example, not even every class in the game can physically do that. I think you can start to see why Blizzard put transmog in the game and made old raids soloable. Keeping old content relevant is something that Blizzard has, in the grand scheme of things, recently made significant improvements too.
They
There's
have.
Chromie time, pick any expansion you want to level in.
True.
Baited
Yeah, with
raids, go
leveling
back
as well.
and do previous raids from the expansion in a different way.
Oh my god, bro, y'all remember this fucking shit? It's like, why did they hit the bar gas stats? Why did they hit the bar gas ads? Like I said, don't hit the bar gas ads. But there's a 2 dots on the ads. How did they get there? How I thought we said not to do that. Why does it have corruption on it? Like, that was the most upsetting fucking shit, man. I was so mad. We never cleared this either.
Time walking, go into old dungeons or raid, collect resources,
Oh,
buy
we did this
collectibles,
today.
adding pets to old raids, adjusting tuning so old raids can be soloed for collections, and so
Yeah.
on. I just can't help but think Classic Plus is going to have a big dead content problem due to how content rolls out during the early versions of WoW and how fast players
Rebalance the gear.
Yep.
Problem solved.
I was gonna say rebalance the raid as well.
Just
but
rebalance
yeah.
the fucking gear. That's all you have to do.
get through it all. Again, I'd love to hear suggestions on this. All that being said, don't get me wrong, I would love to see Classic Plus in the game as a real thing and for Blizzard to take this in a whole new direction. And whilst the whole "it'll take money so they won't do it" thing definitely has something to it, I think there's a lot more important things to be answered than just that. For Classic Plus to really work, it might not just be about adding the new content, but entirely rethinking the formula that makes people actually like Classic in the first place. Thanks once again to Gemstone Legends for sponsoring today. You can check it out via the link in the description or the QR code on screen. Let me know your thoughts on the 3 points I've gone over. Is there...
So I think his 3 points are honestly kind of crap. I'm not saying like it's bad. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think it's worth a conversation in a sense. But I'm thinking back, like, so for example, private servers for Vanilla WoW have always been a thing. They've always been pretty popular as well. Even up to like before, even on like good expansions like Legion, they were still thriving just fine. And I did play a few of them, and some of them had their own like little things that try to make it more interesting. Like you can get drop rates increase, EXP rates increase, and I would say like sometimes they'll have it where like you could go beyond the original like 60. You could just keep leveling and like keep going kind of thing. Or you could buff an item like a ring, or items I should say, beyond what its original drop was. You know what I mean? Like you can +1 it, +2, and so on and so forth. Similar to like the honing system in Lost Ark, but there was no like failure rate. You just needed the materials for it. Like I think doing stuff like that would keep Classic WoW going. I don't think they need to add more content. I think later down the road, after they've kind of exhausted what they can do with the mechanics, would make more sense.
Is there a clear answer out there to this, or is it going to involve a lot of compromising? In any event, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
I think what they need to do is they need to make a PTR and they need to start shooting. Just start putting ideas out there. Put something out there, it's fucking stupid. See how people respond. If they don't like it, delete it.
Just move on.
That's it.
Like PoE kind of does that with their seasons, right? They release seasons with like kind of weird stuff, like interesting ideas. And if it sticks, they put it in the main game. If it doesn't, they just move on, which I think WoW should really try.
Still waiting for Season of Mastery 2. It needs to be way different from Classic. Yeah, I know. Like, the reason why I didn't play Season of Mastery 1 is because why the fuck do I want to go and play a harder version of Molten Core to get the same belt? It's the same belt. I already had this belt. It was easier. Now it's the same fucking belt.
It would be interesting if they made it harder, but then the gear was like upgraded to correspond with that. But I don't think they should do that.
Like, give it more stats. Give it something like that. Like, give us an ability to change. Like, for example, like what if they had, what if Shadow Strike did shadow damage? What if Thunder Strike did lightning damage? Or nature damage? That's too far? Okay, then let's see how far can it go. Let's find out. Yeah, what does that mean? What does too far mean? Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. Yeah, melee mages. Yeah. Let's get some weird shit up in this bitch.
Why not?
Let's have a little bit of fun. That's the way I see it, man. What do you think about seasonal abyss? Accommodate gear 2 or 3 per week? I don't know. It depends on what it is. They're so scared to change the game fundamentally. Yeah, let's get fucking weird. There it is. I totally fucking agree, man. Absolutely. That's what Ascension WoW does. Yeah, just bro, like that's all they need to do. Just like look at some of these, like Ascension WoW, Turtle WoW. Like we all know what they are.
Like I said, the private
Blizzard
servers.
knows what they are too. Just see what they do. See what the things that players like respond to. And just be like, just message and be like, hey, can you guys send us like your fucking like your reports on like how many people are doing the content, just so for us to know. And I bet they would probably do it.
Well, if they don't, Blizzard could just close them down.
Because a lot of the people that make Turtle WoW and shit, they probably want Blizzard to make a Classic Plus. It's not like they hate the game. They just don't like where the game is.
Yep, exactly.
Total WoW, so many ideas from beta were removed and made new dungeons and raids. Yeah. What about all old content being current item level, but you can't do it in a current raid? I don't know about that. Total WoW does an awesome job with creating Classic Plus. Yeah, just do the same thing. The issue with Blizzard doing Classic Plus is that it would cost more than $0 to develop. That is a problem. Total WoW,
I was gonna say they have trouble hiring GMs, so
It's already done. This has been one of the best, most fun times I've had in the game, on par with how much fun I had whenever I experienced the game in 2007. Yeah, just take what they do and do it. It's that simple.
yeah.
Take the stuff that they do that works and put that in the game and then build off of that. Problem solved. Introduce a heroic mode and do some class tuning? Yes, I think that they should absolutely do class tuning. Siege of Nomergon? Yeah, there you go. Let's have to see how far it goes. I love, yeah. Like, this is why I want to see doped Olympics. Let's see the human body on enhancing drugs push the boundaries. Yeah, except for nobody has to die on this. We just get to play the game and like do a little bit more damage. Like
Yeah.
it's totally fine. I don't know, man. Like I'm just hoping something fun happens with Classic WoW. I like Classic WoW
I agree.
a lot, but I wish
Yeah.
that there was more to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't really play Classic WoW too much because it really wasn't different than what I remembered. So that's why I didn't really bother with it. But at the same time, like, I have been waiting for, like, when Season of Mastery kind of came out, I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're going to do something cool. And then I see what they did. And that's stupid. Like, it's just, it's not stupid, but it's like, it's boring. Like, why would you do this? They should have done something, even if it was dumb, like, interesting.
And there was like something new to look forward to.
Yeah.
To have something like the Ascension private server with resources like Blizzard has. Yeah, exactly, man. Huge potential in this. Yeah, I think Classic Plus has more potential than retail WoW.
I would disagree. Just because that's a weird thing to say. WoW Plus has more potential than retail WoW. The difference is like retail WoW has way more to pull from than Classic. Like it could go almost anywhere because it's not contained to just Azeroth. Like you have Outlands, you have Northrend, like you have like anything and everything you can pull from in WoW. While vanilla WoW just literally you are just Azeroth, pretty much vanilla Azeroth as well. Like you don't have Mists of Pandaria or anything like that. So I don't really agree with in terms of like just overall potential. I think it would be it has a lot of potential. I just don't think it has more.
In the long term, I think it does. The reason why is because retail WoW is like zero updates, 18 months, it's growing. Oh yeah, we'll watch this. I'm not gonna watch it today. I'll watch it probably a week later on. The Wrath Plus. I think that they should do Vanilla Plus. Because in Vanilla WoW, you actually went out in the world.
Yeah.
That to me is super fucking important. And if you don't have a reason to go out into the world, you've already lost. You're just and this is what I think happened with like Burning Crusade, is that you had the world like this, and then it became this is the world, and now this is the world, and this is Outland. And then whenever Wrath came out, they said, okay, now this is the world, and this is Northrend. And all of this all of this is deleted. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think what I know what he's saying. He's basically saying like Vanilla WoW had so much content, like especially in the land, like out in the world, that just became obsolete and pointless. So I do agree that they could definitely do more with that. And I think I even kind of mentioned it, like having like world bosses out in the world, just so you're out there like wanting to go out and hunt them down. You know what I mean? Say you get like a big old like Final Fantasy 14 has like a hunt train. It'd be really cool if like WoW had something similar to where like all these players would group up and then go from area to area hunting down the bosses. Like that, I think that would be really fun. I think it should be more than that, of course, but it's just one more idea.
Nobody cares about it. Math is just sitting on Dalaran waiting for raids. Yes, and that's not very good.
Yeah.
Problem is, the long travel is boring. That's true. I do, however, think that it was fun going around and getting world buffs in Classic WoW. I
Not to me.
absolutely think so.
I think doing the world bosses and stuff like that were fun. I didn't like that we had to do it. And that's, at least to me.
I think collecting the consumables and stuff like that is great. And I think you could get rid of a lot of the friction. And yes, I know people are going to be upset about this, but I think that if you take world buffs out of Classic WoW, you take the world out of Classic WoW.
What I think they should have done instead was make it where there was more world buffs. And like there was interesting like quests, like daily or weekly quests you can do. That, you know, would reset weekly, of course. That you can do that activate the world buff like in a town or something like that. Or in an area, in a zone, whatever it may be. Like I think just adding a bunch of them and maybe just not letting them stack. You know what? Never mind. Let them stack. Have fun with it. See how like hardcore players can really min-max these buffs. If you give them like 2 hours, they can't be dispelled or anything like that. And see how many they can stack and like see how fast they like melt the raids. Like I think that'd be really fun.
The reason why most people went around to do different things was to get world buffs. When did you go out into the open world? For world buffs. That's the reason.
When you were max level and doing raids. Yeah.
Amazing. I miss it. Yeah.
Ooh, that would be interesting too, to get like world PvP back in there. Is have it where like some world buffs you kind of got to fight the other faction for. And like I said, they should have it where you just stack it and keep getting more and more and more. Yeah, no, that. But yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. Like have a season of buffs. Like that would be so fun.
Bad take, Aspen? No, it's not. What is it? Why is it bad? You know, for Nixion to teach us dragon flying in Classic? Yeah, there you go. Really, really shitty chores shouldn't be what's forcing you out into the world. I don't know. I don't think world buffs are as bad as people make them out to be.
They're not terrible, but it didn't exactly annoy me, I guess. Like it was more like tedious at best. After a while, like obviously the first kind of couple of times you do it, it's kind of fun doing world bosses. But like once your guild has it down, they have like pretty decent gear. It's not even fun. Like it's not a fight. Like you're just downing it to get the buff.
I think also that's why Season of Mastery was also boring, is because people liked being able to blow up the bosses and raid in 2 hours and then be done with it, and then still be
I agree.
You know, progressed and like have like competitive gear. Redesign world buffs? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, like I said, the season of buffs. That would be really, really cool. Add a bunch of, you know, outdoor bosses, like world bosses, just like add like freaking 50 of them and just like have it where they all stack. But have it on a timer, you know, so the quicker you down the boss, like the more buffs you're going to get. So that way, as you're progressing in the raids and stuff, getting better gear, you can get even more buffs, thus giving you an incentive to, you know, really push it.
Andy, I like your world buff Chrono Boon idea. Just store everything and use it at will. Exactly. If world buffs are the only reason to go out into the world itself sucks. It's not that it sucks, it's just that the content doesn't suck because people don't do it.
There's no incentive.
People don't do things because they're not min-maxed. That's why. People always do things because they are efficient. You always say take things out of games that are not fun. World buffs are not fun. Being required to log into the game at times not to play, but to get ready for the next time a raid was not good. Okay, so with a lot, I actually...
And if they do the, like I was saying, like have a bunch of world bosses that each have their own buff, is the spawn rate should be pretty much instant. It's just the same buff cannot be stacked. So if you kill a boss, that particular boss will respawn almost right away. Like I would say 3 minutes or something. Just so of course, you know, you're not getting spawned on right away. Give you time to get away. Anyways, like that boss will not give you a buff again that you can stack. You have to move on to the next world boss.
We think that raiding with world buffs was fun. I will go out and I will say it. I think that it was fun to go in there, Omega buffed, and
Oh yeah, because it's like you felt like crazy more stronger than you did without them.
Fucking destroy the bosses.
Yep.
100%, man. And yes, I do think that it was stupid that you had to sit there and fucking buff your character and you couldn't raid. Obviously, that was bad. But that is an acquisition problem, not a world buff problem.
Sure.
Getting them was not fun. Then change the way you get them.
I think it was interesting
Like
the
for
way you got them. Like it's as fun as it can get. It's a world boss.
example, like, yes, purging world buffs is garbage. Just make it so you can't do that. Problem solved.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I already
Yeah.
said that. Yeah, make it
Yeah, you keep them after
dispellable.
death. Sure. Yeah, why not?
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah, and wiping became 10x worse with world buffs that make them persist through death. Yeah, what's the problem? If you go that dedicated summoners, it's not too bad to get.
Like it'd be cool if like I was just like still thinking on this idea of like season of buffs. It's like even while leveling, you can get like these kind of world buffs off of just doing like questing or something like that. They're just not as powerful, of course, as like the max level ones. But that way, you know, as you're questing, you can have these, you know, bunch of buffs adding up because you're completing these quest chains, and it's just making you feel like freaking badass, like going around one-shotting stuff at like level 20 or something. I think that'd be really cool.
Them and risk-free. Nothing's really risk-free, but yeah. Sorry, one fall with world buffs was the way it forced you to play after getting them. Yeah, I think world buffs should be a consumable. How many?
See, I don't think that would be that interesting, but you know, it could be. I just don't. On paper, I don't think it sounds that interesting.
MMOs have world buffs these days? Pretty much none of them. But I think that the issue that going out in the world would have, and I think also like giving people more quest lines like Scepter of the Shifting Sands would also get people to go out into the world if the rewards were very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many other games have world buffs. I have no idea. But I'm just talking about classic WoW. It was funny having to watch out for purgers in the city being flagged for PvP. Really? I don't know. I thought that was stupid.
Like, I'm still stuck on the season of buffs, man. That sounds super fun. I may make like a little video on it, see if Asman catches it, see if he can react to it. So maybe WoW will actually do something similar. Because it's like, I think about it like it's super easy to do, right? You just reuse the bosses in the game, maybe tweak their HP or something like that. The numbers, basically, which would be super easy, I'm assuming. Because you're not changing the mechanics, you're just changing how much health they have and how much damage they do. To reflect being a world boss. That and make like some quest chains that are, you know, like I said, weeklies. Or even like normal quests, and normal questing. Like have them where they can give you buffs as well. That way you're getting buffs throughout your entire leveling experience, and then when you get to max level, that's when you want to min-max buffs. Like have hunt trains for buffs. So even if you aren't going to raid, you join the hunt train or this big raid of people, you go hunt all the bosses. Now you're just like uber powerful to where maybe you can go in and like solo the raid. So you have like these like 40 people all like so strong they could solo the raid. But then you imagine like, you know, there's going to be people who want to do like the record, like speed runs. Like who's the fastest clear? Like the guilds are going to have that. And it wouldn't take much effort. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that seems really cool. That would really get me to go back to play. 100%.
And I mean, even like, Kevin Jordan, original WoW dev, like said that wasn't really intended. It was just like an oversight. So it's not like this is some sort of like grand design of the game. I think purging people's world buffs and stuff like that are annoying.
Yeah, definitely agree. So Classic Plus has more problems than you think. I mean, Classic Plus isn't really a thing, so it doesn't really have any problems exactly. I think the whole mentality of expecting like new content is not mentality, but like the expectation of getting new content for Classic WoW. I think it's just kind of you're wasting your time. like they have trouble paying their GMs, and you think they're gonna actually go through the trouble of adding new content? Like it's being not being pessimistic, it's being realistic. Like if WoW was known for putting, a lot of money into their games to just make it better, it would be different, but they're not. Dragonflight seems to be changing a bit with that, but I just, yeah, I just feel like you're on copium, hoping for that. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, I think WoW could do a lot of things for their seasons. I really wish they would do them because I mean, even Diablo 3, like their new season, covered in a previous video, but that makes me want to go back and play it. And I have not wanted to play Diablo 3 in a long time. So it's like, I think WoW can do that. And make it even, would be really cool too, is make it free to play, I think the only problem, of course, would be the botting issue. But I think you're going to have bots no matter what. So, who cares? Especially since it's a season. Like, a season. Like, who cares if there's, like, a lot of bots in a season, right? Or at least it would bother me if I saw them all the time. But at the same time, it wouldn't really bother me too much. It's not like I would quit the game because of it. So, yeah, no, free to play and make the seasons interesting. Like I said, I'll probably do like a quick video on like what I think seasons for Classic could do to make it interesting, including like a season of buffs, because I really think that's a cool idea. Yeah, no, all right. So that's gonna be this video. I figured I'd just check this out for fun. Sometimes I watch these kind of videos just because I think they're funny. So this is by Lucy Pyre. I think that's how she says it. Either way, the dark truth that every streamer knows. So let's take a look.
The year is 2020. The year is 2023. Anime is officially real. You go on YouTube, there's a bunny girl who snorts Red Bull. You go on
Yeah, anime is way more popular than it used to be.
Twitch, you get cat girls who love Jesus. You go on Twitter, anime girls are fighting over whether having huge fat tootie jugs is woke or not. You open your favorite game. Even more anime girls going ooh woo and voice chat. Your afternoon snack. You, it's an anime girl too. There's no winning this war. There's no turning back the clock. You can't run from the moe. You can't hide from the kawaii sugoi desune. But wait, you can hear a whisper in the darkness. The calm before the storm. The key to destroying this epidemic. Turns out those anime girls are problematic. And they're hiding a dark secret. A weapon they aim to enslave humanity with. It's called being parasocial. Now, the most important thing to know about being parasocial is that it wasn't a real thing before VTubers hit the market. They
Really? Oh, I see. Never mind. I was actually taking this seriously for a second. Yeah.
invented it. Just like simps weren't real before women started streaming. Am I right, XQC Yasmin Gold Ludwig Hassan viewers? You can't be on the internet for very long without someone mentioning
Yeah,
the term you
called out.
breathe incorrectly and someone will accuse you of being it. Because in this economy, daring to enjoy something is a sin that cannot go unpunished. What, you like some streamer girl's content? I bet you're one of those parasocial Andes who wishes she was your girlfriend. By the way, when I start every day with PewDiePie's videos before heading to work, that's completely different from whatever you're doing. I'm not parasocial at all. I've watched him since I was 9 and his content just cheers me up, okay? Yes, indeed. Everyone is parasocial, and I do mean everyone.
That's funny.
The only way to escape
I don't think everyone's parasocial. I think anytime you chat or you are typing in a streamer chat, then I would agree, yeah. Other than that, though, I don't think you're parasocial for watching streamers.
the label is to never turn on a computer or TV again and relocate to Antarctica. Cause let's not get it twisted. By pure definition, if you feel that you have a relationship with a media person,
Okay. Oh, I was reading. I should have just read out loud. So the term parasocial relationship refers to a relationship that a person imagines having with another person whom they do not actually know, such as a celebrity or a fictional character. So when they're referring to having a relationship, they legitimately mean that you think you are friends with them. And that's why parasocial is like kind of cringe. Like you think you're friends with like the Master Chief or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's just weird. Um, but it's the same thing. Like when you think the streamer is your actual friend that like is in that kind of relationship with you as your friends in real life, which is not the case. It's similar to like the whole celebrity thing. Like when you got people who are like, oh no, like she's my wife. Um, she just doesn't want anyone to know. Like basically, it's a narrative in their head that isn't actually real. I think is when they're talking about parasocial relationships. I'll just read the rest of this. This often involves a person feeling as though they have a close, intimate connection with someone who they have never met, due to closely following that person in media. For example, a child may feel as though they're friends with a fictional character. I never felt that way, and I've watched anime and play games my whole life. I never thought the characters in my anime were my friends. That's a little weird. But who knows? Maybe like really, really young kids do that. Are often discussed in the context of social media, other online platforms. Okay. Sorry, coughing. Sorry.
Personality or even a fictional character, you are participating in a parasocial relationship. Now hold on, Lucy, stop right there. I don't feel like I have a relationship with them. Clearly I'm aware that I'm not their lover, unfortunately. So
Yeah. Yeah, because I think what Lucy is kind of insinuating that, like, do you care about them? Therefore, you're in a relationship, which I really disagree. Because other than that, it's like, okay, well, do you like? Some people have their favorite pen. That doesn't mean they're in a relationship with that pen.
to call me parasocial, well, all I have to say is, take your meds, you whore. Do you really think it's that easy to escape the parasocial? Let me give you an example. How many people slammed the last season of Game of Thrones, rightfully so, for being an absolute dumpster fire? And how many videos were made about the fictional character Daenerys, claiming that her actions were, quote, out of character, and she would never do such a thing? How would these people even know?
That's simple. It's because the character has already been portrayed in the game or in the show. So that's like if Master Chief opened up a donut stand or a lemonade stand. I'd said donut, but I was thinking donut shop. But yeah, like imagine him like quitting being a soldier and wanting to do a mom and pop shop. That it's not in character with the Master Chief. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to be in a relationship with someone to know like that's not normal for them. You know what I mean? That's it's a weird argument.
Oh, it was out of character if they didn't feel like they knew her on some subconscious level.
They of course they know her. It's not like she was introduced and started doing what, out of character things. She is an established character with her like background and all that already like shown. How does she react to things or what's the word I'm looking for? Okay. So like a hero, a character, like a protagonist, right? They're going to want to help someone whenever they're in trouble. But if you have it where they are like in season 12 and all of a sudden they don't do that anymore without any explanation on like why, then it's not in character. You know what I mean? Like it'd be different if like he was betrayed by someone he helped and, that's why he doesn't want to help anyone anymore. But if just all of a sudden like, oh yeah, I'm not going to help people. Like what? Like that's a big difference.
Gamers, we have to be honest with ourselves. If you've ever felt sadness upon seeing your favorite character die, or you've ever been disappointed when your favorite content creator stops uploading, then yes, you're most likely somewhat parasocial.
Not even close. I would really disagree here because it's like, okay, it'd be different if like the reason why you were upset that, in this case, I think your name is Senna, from Hololive, quit being a streamer. is because you liked her content and she's not making her content anymore. Therefore, that's upsetting. It's like, imagine if you had a TV show that was like 2 seasons in, and it's your favorite TV show, and they say, "Oh, we're not continuing it." It's upsetting. You know what I mean? Like, your entertainment is no longer there. Whether it's a book as well. I'm like, say you have a book you like, and they stop doing it. It's upsetting. Like, I don't know. Like, I think she's being very loose with the term parasocial when it obvious. Like, even in the definition, it was saying, like, you think you have a relationship with these people, as in your friend, lover, whatever it may be. And that's the difference. Like, you caring about something doesn't mean it's a relationship.
But wait, before you click off the video, I'm not here to say that's a bad thing. In fact, I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say it can be a really, really good thing sometimes. And I want to take some heat off of the viewers as well, because when it comes to being parasocial, it starts with the source. That's right, streamers, I'm coming for your ass. And also my own ass. I just think ass is pretty neat, I guess.
How dare anyone out there make fun of Brittany after all she's been through?
So being parasocial is usually attributed as the cause for some of the worst shit you've ever seen in your life. The Vox paradox, the Russian
cringe.
Soviet Union, the Suisei piss drinking. That's right, the Suisei apple juice piss drinking! If you listen to the internet tell it, parasocial people are stalkers. Fans who are on the edge, just one mistake away from going full anti.
Yeah, they're completely unhinged. Because if you think you have a relationship with someone who you've never, like, yes, they read your message and maybe they answered your question or whatever you said, but that's also not a case where you now have a relationship with them. You know what I mean? Like, that's like going to, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of those, like, events where you can ask questions to someone. Like, that doesn't mean, like, you're friends with whoever's on stage. You know what I mean?
Demanding you to
Like, they're gonna invite you out to eat after the freaking place is done. But if that's your mentality where, like, oh, he answered my question, I'm now, like, his best friend, he's gonna invite me to his wedding, I'm gonna be his best man. Like, yeah, you're kind of crazy.
rate their dick pics. Sorry, that got a little bit too specific. But the way I see it, stalkers and bad people
I don't think that's parasocial. I think that's just creeps.
have existed long before the internet and will continue to do so. And slapping the label parasocial on them sort of takes the bite out of it. As if I'm somehow supposed to rank someone who's sending decapitated Barbie dolls to a streamer the same way I rank someone who redeems fart reverb 5 times per stream. Because really, to condemn all forms of parasocial relationships is to demand that people not feel anything. That people somehow too.
Which is what I was saying in the beginning. She's conflating caring for something for having a relationship with it. It's just not the same thing. And I'll just go back to it. It's like, you have a favorite pen? That doesn't mean you're in a relationship with a pen, so.
Tune into a certain type of content every day and then leave with
Or you have a favorite color? Does that mean you're now in a relationship with the color black? Or orange? Like, it's just weird.
no parts of themselves changed. Now, whether that part is your heart getting warm or your dick popping a dent, that's a whole other story. And I think that any artist or creator would say that detachment is not what they want out of their audience. They want you to feel something. They want their
Yeah, they want them to care, but they don't want their viewers to think, like, because you answered their question, you're now, like, freaking best friends, or, like, they were hitting on you and they're interested in you. Like, I think that's the difference.
work to mean more.
And I think most people know
More
that.
than idle entertainment. If they can't get some type of emotional reaction out of you, then they think they must be doing something wrong. See, no one thinks that an author is an asshole for writing a story that makes them cry. No one feels ashamed to admit that they cried while watching something like Up either. But when it comes to streamers and YouTubers, there's this weird sense of shame and stigma, as if feeling attached to that person is morally wrong. But I can't help but think that if you feel attached to someone that you watch,
I think that's the case for, like, at least right now, I think it's the case for a lot of people with VTubers. Because it is pretty new, and to be honest, it's not exactly normal. But at the same time, I think as it becomes normal, more like people kind of know about VTubers and how all that works. I think similar to anime, like liking anime was not exactly like a good thing. So I think it falls under that same kind of paradigm where it's just not many people really know about it, so it's not really accepted. But I think as time goes on, it will change.
Watch every day. You're just normal.
Yeah, because I'm a fan of like several VTubers, but that doesn't mean I think I'm in a relationship with them. You know what I mean? Like they know nothing about me. I don't know anything personal about them. Well, some of the stories they say, I guess, but even then, I would never assume like maybe I see them like, oh, we're gonna visit like this place, and it's like my hometown. I think they don't even mention it because they're afraid of people like trying to find them, which I think is where the issue comes into play with parasocial people. Is if a VTuber said where they were going, there would be people who think like, oh, I can be friends with, or they answered my question, or like I see them streaming and I'm typing in their chat, therefore I'm their friend, so I can go up to them when they're in my hometown and just like get grab some food with them, which isn't exactly bad, but at the same time, the mentality of these kind of people is just not stable, so it's not safe.
You're completely fine. And to be honest, the types of people that participate in harassment and stalking would still do so, no matter what the target does. Most of the things that people call parasocial just seem really sweet in my eyes. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem, the psychopath, so to speak, but when I see fans branding together to make something nice for their favorite streamer, the word parasocial never comes to my mind. It just makes me smile. I mean,
Oh, that's weird. Maybe people have been using parasocials differently. I've always used it myself, at least, for those who, like I said, think they're in a relationship with the streamer, as in they're their friend, they're their lover, potential lover, whatever it may be. And it's like, no, you're not in a relationship with them. It's a transaction of sorts. Like they are providing content, you consume the content, and by you viewing, they can make money if there's enough people doing it. And if you want to donate money, it's similar like you buying something at a store. You know what I mean? Like, to me, at least, that's how I've seen it. I really think if what Lucy is saying here is how people have been using parasocial, it's completely wrong. Like, you enjoying the streamer content, you wanting to make things from that streamer, like little cute videos or like maybe a music video or even like short clips on them. Like I think that has nothing to do with parasocial because you don't think you're in a relationship with them, right? Like when you make fanfic of Mario and stuff like that, you're not in a relationship with Mario. So
holy humans are just so cute! Of course, I'm not saying that getting overly obsessed with something is a good thing, but that goes for anything in life, media, personality, or otherwise. And if you really want to point fingers at someone, then do I have some news for you, because this parasocial accusation is a psyops, a cover-up for the true culprits at hand, the people who lurk in the shadows, who reap all the rewards,
who's she
and
talking
none
about?
of the blame. Streamers.
Rise up, gamer boys. It's time to get your gamer girl bathwater.
What if I told you that creators
Yeah, because I mean, there's definitely some streamers, mostly on the women's side, who farm these parasocial individuals. So I mean, it is what it is, but
can be just as parasocial as their audience, if not more so.
I don't think they're parasocial exactly with their audience. I think they take advantage of the fact that their audience has a lot of parasocial people.
And I'm not gonna point any fingers because 1, I don't know what's going on in other people's heads, and 2, I don't want to stir but I think I've established that I don't think being parasocial is the boogeyman everyone makes it out to be. Even so, that doesn't give me the right to put anyone else under fire, accidentally or not. So you know what? I'm gonna put myself on the stake for you. Nail myself to the golden arches like Jesus on the cross. I am parasocial. Yes, confirmed problematic streamer. And the funny thing is, I don't know how I'm expected not to be. Multiple days a week, I come online to the same people. I talk with them, I laugh with them, I entertain them.
Yeah, but it's different when it's like, so for example, like the mods in her chat, or like anyone who's like in a Discord chat with her, like if you consider them your friend and they consider you a friend, that's not parasocial. You both have spoken to each other multiple times. You do have a relationship of sorts. You're friends. You know what I mean? That's different. And maybe not a close friend, maybe not a friend you would invite to a wedding or anything like that, but you can have friends with your viewers. And some of your, as a viewer, you can be friends with the streamer. But when you're assuming that with no actual like friendship things, like you don't have them added in Discord. You can't call them up, can't message them privately. Or maybe you can message them privately, but not without their consent. Um, that would be parasocial. If you have their consent and they're replying to your messages on a regular basis, not even regular, but like sometimes, yeah, that I would say that's a friend. Maybe not like a close one, like I said, but yeah.
And hell, they entertain me too. I read their comments, I see their encouragement, and I feel less alone. In my case, it probably doesn't help that I'm pretty bad at making friends as is, so having a chat that genuinely wants to talk to me is such a fresh, nice feeling that
I mean, that is something she could probably work on. Is that if and I don't think that is the case because I think I've seen her collab with other people, but like to think that the only friends in your life are your stream viewers, I think is something she does need to really reflect on.
I can't help but feel somewhat attached. I know I can't be the only streamer who feels this way. I also want to dispel the myth that streamers have no idea who you are. Sure, if you lurk and never post a single message, yeah, that's probably the case. But if you're a frequent chatter, unless the community is bigger than a billionaire's overseas bank account, they probably recognize you. And that's not even cope, it's a fact of life.
Recognition isn't a relationship though. Like I know I can recognize my coworkers. 99% of them I don't like. I'm not in a relationship with them. They're not my friend. But if I walk by them, like I'd be able to see them, like recognize them.
If a streamer interacts with you enough times, they start to remember your username and the gist of how you type. Go figure. I'm not saying they're your best friend or anything, but that's not quite the same as having no idea you exist, is it? Like many other streamers, I recognize usernames. I have inside jokes with my community. I find myself thinking things like, oh, so-and-so will say something if I do this, or, they'll probably react this way if I make another joke about my huge 600-pound cock. And yeah, I also notice when certain chatters are missing, when it's been a while since I saw a certain username pop up in the chat, and that can genuinely make me feel a little pang of sadness, even though it is one-sided, even though the other person...
Well, that's also different. You don't think you have a relationship with them though. Like you're an entertainer. Like you're trying to be fun, you're trying to entertain, and then when you don't see them, you feel like you failed at that. I think that's more that where that feeling comes from, because it's like, I could be wrong. Like I'm not going to try to force say, oh no, that's she doesn't know her feelings or anything like that. I'm just saying like the more likelihood, because if you think about it, that's the case with anything, right? Like imagine you sell a book, it does extremely well. You sell the next book, it does extremely poorly. It's like you're going to feel like shit. You know what I mean? Because you feel like you did not put out the same quality. Because when you're a creator, it doesn't really matter what you're creating. You're going to have some sense of pride on it, right? Especially if you're trying to sell it. Like if you're trying to sell something you have no pride in, then you're not going to care whether someone likes it or not, to be fair. So
may have forgotten about me, which means, yes, I am parasocial, self-diagnosed. But don't get it twisted, that's not me saying I'm so special. I'm different from other streamers, look at me.
yeah, but that's the case, like I said, like, oh, they forgot about me. Like, is the feeling of them forgetting about you and unsubscribing, is that the same feeling of when you've lost friends in real life or family in real life? I would assume no. If it is, then yeah, Lucy, you need to really reflect on that. But losing a viewer, even if it's a long time viewer, is going to hurt. That doesn't mean you're in a relationship with them. That's the difference. Now, like I said, they could have been like a longtime viewer that you were actually friends with. Maybe they had access to your Discord in terms of like being able to message you, and talking to you kind of separate. Basically, if they were talking with you outside of streaming, I think that would lean in towards them actually being your friend, because that's outside of work. Like for example, like say you're a customer service person, right? When you're at work, yes, you're talking to these people, you're being super friendly. Maybe you even have regulars at your work, right? But unless you're like doing things outside of work with them, like talking to them, texting, whatever it may be, they're not really your friend, at least in my opinion.
Actually think I'm the rule and not the exception, because this is a really weird...
Because it's like, if you're not talking to them outside of work, then are they really your friend? Like, Does that mean the only reason you're talking to them is just you happen to be, it's because they're at work? I don't know.
Career.
Because I think at most that would be like a colleague or something, like an associate or someone you're associated with at most, but it's not really a friend.
And a lot of it is uncharted territory, because while an actress goes and films her movie in spurts and doesn't interact with the viewers until later, if she decides to at all, streamer interactions are real time in the moment with the threat of getting one guide always waiting around the corner. I think it would be really difficult to emotionally distance yourself from something that's just so close. And for me, having this relationship with my chat has been a 99% positive experience. Sure, weird shit happens now and then,
That's
but if
good,
you deal with it
but
quickly and set basic boundaries,
not
then I
to do with
guarantee
parasocial
viewers
stuff.
will understand. So where does this leave us? You just said you're parasocial, and everyone on the internet tells me that being parasocial makes you the scum of the earth. Just tell me where to point the pitchfork, Strimmer. Well, what if I said it's somewhere in the...
The middle.
I'll be honest with you, gamer. I struggled like a motherfucker with this script. The reason this is coming out late January and not early January is because I fought with myself so hard over whether I should be making it or not in the first place. I mean, I'm far from the first person to talk about the term or to imply parasocial relationships aren't inherently bad. I'm not even the first person to tackle it from a VTubing perspective, and yeah, talking honestly about my thoughts on this topic has a chance of making me look like a toxic asshole, which seemed like a kind of play. And so several times I'd start
I don't think she was a toxic asshole in any way. I just think that she is not really understanding what it means to be in a parasocial relationship. Because caring, like I keep repeating it, caring about something does not mean it's a relationship. It just doesn't.
writing, scrap it, go back to it, and then restart from the beginning, all over again. Even here at the...
Like, if you see someone in an accident and you're worried about what's happening to them, you want them to be safe, you want to do something, that doesn't mean you're now in a relationship with that person. Like, I saw this old lady break down in the middle of the road. Like, I literally just parked my car and ran out to help her. Does that mean I'm now in a relationship with her? Like, no.
end, I'm not sure I've made something coherent rather than just a ramble of my personal feelings as a streamer. And maybe that's why I couldn't stop thinking about it. Because in all of the very good videos that were made about the topic, I noticed it was all from an outsider's perspective. A scholar looking in on the degenerate and filthy little lives of streamer personalities. And while it's one thing to hear a fellow viewer tell you that your attachment to a content creator is a good thing, it's another to hear those words from one in the flesh. So I have two
That's
things
fair.
left to say. One, to the viewers around the world, whether you watch me or not, whether you've been subscribed from the beginning or you're a Mr. Beast viewer who's really f***ing confused about how you got here, I'll say on behalf of all creators on every platform, thank you. I'm here to tell you that liking things is fine. In fact, I encourage it. Only you can look inside yourself and decide whether your admiration for someone or something has reached an unhealthy point, and I, for one, trust you to have that maturity. You don't need to associate yourself with people.
I wouldn't trust that, because if they're gonna do it, that means they're not exactly mentally stable or mentally right. If it happened to the first place, so because a lot of times when it happens, how would they know it's bad? They're the ones who did it to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, unless you get like a wake up call, like, oh damn, what have I been doing? But yeah. Oh well, let's finish the video. Finish it up. See what she says.
Because people throw the label parasocial around like it's a substitute for being down bad a bomb.
I agree.
Abominably, you're not a bad person for liking streamers. And you're not even
Nope.
a bad person for wanting to suck Finster's toes. I mean, everyone wants to do that, right?
That's weird.
Right?
But
And
that
the
doesn't make you
second and final
parasocial.
thing is, I'm going to say something that needs a bit of a disclaimer. I want to make this extremely clear. I do not think the vast majority of content creators set out with the intention to form a parasocial bond with their viewers. I think it's
I would
just the
agree.
natural consequence of wanting to be liked, wanting to do well, and wanting our content to mean something to people. But with that being said, I'll be
Like I said, I think she's confusing parasocial because it's like, I think the reason why it really popped off in terms of parasocial, it was always a thing with like celebrities, but I think it became super, like, what's the word I'm looking for, widespread after streaming like kind of became big, just because you can see people typing, they can react to that, answer the question or statement, thus making whoever this may be, what if they're not exactly mentally hinged, or they are like something's wrong with them, they need like actual mental assistance, either through drugs or therapy. They're now under the assumption because you saw their thing, responded to it, you know, had an answer like to them, they now see it as like, oh, they're my friend now. Like that's the part that's a problem.
Be the first to admit, whether we as creators are aware of it or not, every single one of us ends up encouraging parasocial connections to some degree. Is it career suicide to come out and say that? Me?
I don't know about encouraging would be the right word, but I think it's just a side effect of the nature of the medium.
Maybe, but I'm just being honest. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say, oh, I don't care if you never watch my content again. I hate it when people get attached to my work. I hate it when people value me and make me a part of their routine because, of course I don't. I like it. I get fulfillment out of it, and just like any other human, or demon-human hybrid, I'm happy that others enjoy.
Yeah, but that could go off, like I was saying, that's literally off of anything. Do you like having fans? Of course you do. Like, who in any kind of entertainment medium would say no?
What?
It's basically what the fans do. Like, no one minds having fans. It's just like, is a fan gonna come up to you and act like you've been friends your whole life? Like, that's why celebrities have issues with it. Usually it's because the fan is just like being way overly familiar when they've never even spoken to them.
Well, me. And at the end of the day, I don't think either the viewer or the streamer is evil. Streamers inspire the viewers, and viewers inspire the streamer to do better, to grow, and to evolve. Viewers are the streamer's greatest motivation, and if streamers can repay those people by making them smile, laugh, or making their work shift a little easier to get through, what in the is the harm in that? Why are we so obsessed with shaming people over it? The internet is great because it gives an option to people like me
That was a
who
funny
shut
anime.
down in face-to-face situations, the opportunity to make friends, the opportunity to be myself and speak freely, not without fearing rejection, because holy the stuff I see in some YouTube comments, but while knowing that the people who do reject me are outweighed by people who support me with their whole hearts and souls. Like with most other things in life, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, somewhere between black and white. Parasocial.
Not really. I think she only thinks that because she isn't going with the actual definition of it, which is why they repeatedly use the word relationship and not what's the word I'm looking for, fondness or fan or anything like that, because it's just not a case. Like, you being a fan of something doesn't put you in a relationship with whatever it may have been. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a favorite game, that doesn't mean you're in a relationship with it. Like, like, it's just such a silly concept.
Relationships, as with literally any other type of relationship, have the chance to go sour. In that sense, it's just like any other relationship. With proper boundaries and communications, things will be okay. We will be okay. And the next time I see a post about parasocial shit in the streamer sphere, I swear to fucking God, if it's another blanket statement shitting on viewers for having feelings, I'm going to. Anyway, I'm embarrassed and terrified now, and that's all I had to say about that, so bye. Alright, talk to you later.
No, I mean, like, I see what she's saying. I really do think that if for anyone who thinks that using the word parasocial for someone who's a fan of a streamer, even if it's like a big fan, like someone who's not exactly obsessive, but like even obsessive, like I don't think that's that big of a deal as long as it's not like where you're trying to like stream snipe them and like find out where they live. Like, all that stuff is just, yeah, no, you're being a stalker. You're not really being a fan at that point. Yeah, no, I just think that Lucy here has different definition to parasocial than what was intended. Maybe I don't know if that's the right wording here for this. But yeah, overall, I would agree that just because you like something doesn't mean it's like that's not a bad thing. You know what I mean? You're doing fan art for your favorite streamer, content creator, whoever it may be. Like, I think Valkyrie has like her Reddit where people post like, you know, drawings of her. I don't think anyone would consider that parasocial. If you do, then you're wrong. Just straight up, like, I'm not gonna work around it like, oh, maybe you're right. No, you're wrong. That's not parasocial. I think it was pretty obvious what the definition is. Relationship, as in you in your head think that you're friends, whatever relationship in your head it is, it doesn't matter. You know, like when they use the word waifu, most people are just semi-joking, like, oh, she's cute, you know, like my wife, you know what I mean, whatever it may be. But they're not actually like in their heads like, she's my wife. Like, why is she talking to these other people? She's my wife. that's when it's a parasocial thing, because it's now like you actually think that the relationship is real, like you are, you know, married. But yeah, I think it was interesting, somewhat video. It does suck that it seems like they're misusing the word parasocial to the point that she had to make this video, because I just really don't agree with it. Okay. And next video is going to be by Narc. I do disagree with a lot of things Narc says, but I do think he is one of the best ones to get updates with Ashes of Creations in terms of content. And I just noticed I'm not subscribed, and I did not like the video. Did I do that with Lucy? I am subscribed, but did not like it. Okay. All right. And this is going to be Ashes of Creations forced to take action after community backlash. I wonder about what.
I see you're
Let's turn this up.
I see you're in a bit of a pickle, newbies. I'm sure you won't mind if I interject momentarily.
At least he's not in his underwear.
Whoa.
Never
You just
mind.
burst in here and took our kill. We were about to fight that guy and you just...
Quit your whining, newbie. Here. And you. The loot was dog shit anyway, just a bunch of so-called epics with arbitrary numbers attached to it, meaningless.
Meaningless? Who are you to question our design? I'm not sure how you destroyed Gamora, but I'm pretty sure all three of you are cheating somehow. This is a breach of our terms of service. Your time playing with cum is ending as of...
Damn. Though I did, like I said, I do disagree with some of the Narc's points. In a lot of cases, you can't deny the amount of work this dude puts in his editing.
Hey, what up, boys? So, outrage, disappointment, crippling depression, just three of the emotions that the Ashes of Creation community expressed after this month's livestream, and whilst some of it is warranted, after taking the time to collect my thoughts,
Is this with the tank
a lot of it
gameplay?
is very misplaced and strange to me, so I wanted to address the concerns today and probably repeat myself for the 50th time. But before we get into that, our patrons and I would love for you to grab yourself a go bag show loud, because the response to the January showcase was fairly positive. However, the presentation was highly critiqued, so bad in fact that all social media platforms were positively oozing with so much toxic waste. Even the usual
Really?
cesspit enjoyers were being poisoned. But good news! The feedback did not fall upon deaf ears, my friend. The moment the livestream ended, Steven announced he would be re-recording the gameplay portion of the showcase and presenting it in a much more professional manner. And today, I want to discuss this and the future.
I don't think, at least me personally, like I don't really think they did that bad of a job. Like it was casual, it was fun, which I think is fine.
Of Ashes of Creation's live stream presentation, because this is a very slippery slope. Now, with all that bollocks out of the way, let's begin, shall we? So I'll go on record right away and say the new presentation was much better than what they gave us during the live stream. It did feel disorganized and kind of like they winged it a bit, which, in my opinion at least, doesn't make much sense when this project depends on public perception so much. But the actual dog-tier
Would agree with
gameplay
that.
from Steven himself doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I rather like seeing him play poorly because it represents the average player. Remember, we as consumers here
Would Steven Sharif be considered an average player though? I don't know. Just because he plays badly does not mean he's going to have the perspective of an average player, I think.
desperately waiting for this game that quite literally doesn't exist are most certainly
Or do you mean like because he's like a boomer? Like he's not a good player.
MMO vets who likely derive our whole identity over how well we play this dead-ass genre. Addiction is a bitch, you see, but we are most certainly a massive minority here. Just be thankful Steven's gameplay will keep that sense of discovery intact for us when we eventually get our hands on Alpha 2 in 2077. However, I will admit, during this livestream in particular, the way they presented the whole archetype showcase was very disappointing, and it felt like they only had a loose plan and just went with it, getting immersed and completely forgetting to touch on some core, very important points of the showcase. Starting with the tooltips. There's a very specific reason I didn't bring them up in my breakdown video because, well, I simply couldn't be asked to go through the whole clip to find the random off chances that Steven just so happened to hover over the skills themselves. And this is one of the very first changes to this new presentation. Steven actually took the time to go through the new skills one by one and discuss them in detail with the developers present. And I will reiterate all of this in detail during our tank feedback video.
Whoa, that's actually interesting then. I have not seen the previous one. I only seen this one. I thought that's what they were talking about. Man, that other one must have been terrible.
To be honest, today's video was supposed to be that, but I simply couldn't resist milking this mild drama with over-dramatic titles and clickbait. I did enjoy the new structure of the showcase, the way he started off with the shield and mace instead of looting it towards the end, and I thought Steven adjusted his gameplay to properly represent threat, crowd control, and defenses. However, I mainly noticed in November, really, that people continue to treat the showcases as though they are some sort of finished product and represent the game in its finished.
They would always do that, Narc. No matter what you say, no matter what Steven says, no matter who says it, they are always going to do that. It's just how it is. Until they've released the new one, that the most recent one is the finished game to them.
Forgetting that this is a demonstration of unfinished classes at low level in an unfinished zone against unfinished mobs using unfinished abilities. The game is still years away, and you're gonna have to get over that. We want Ashes of Creation to be made correctly, and that is going to take time. If it doesn't, you end up with the same mistakes our currently popular MMOs ended up with, and the reason you probably don't enjoy them. Broken, unfinished content
a lot of people play New World now.
Dies within a month of release. So, today's
it's
video
not dead,
is
but okay.
twofold, really. I, of course, wanted to give you guys my opinion that nobody
I think he could have used other games as a better example, but yeah.
asked for on the quality of the last showcase, but I also want to get something off my chest, because the negativity surrounding this game is getting louder and louder, making all social media outlets a complete toxic cesspit. You're either shut down for asking simple questions by boomers who've been following this game for 6 years already, or you see mockery for the game never being released and demanding it be made faster. And if I'm honest with you, friends, it's really getting on my tits.
It's not going to change. Like, you can complain about it, but people always do that. It doesn't matter really what game. They want the game faster. They want the expansion faster. So it is what it is. You know, just ignore them.
It's very much worth mentioning that they aren't just developing one thing at a time here. These presentations are seeing the game as a whole come to life before our eyes. The systems that existed in Alpha 1 were ripped out, refractured, and re-implemented for Alpha 2, and the live streams over the last 4 or 5 months have shown this very clearly. Starting with the damage numbers and an explanation of how customizable they are in the Melee showcase. We saw a few basic UI elements in the Ranger showcase, giving us a peek at the targeting UI, spell bar, and minimap. That was followed up by how we interact with some gatherables in the world during the Gathering showcase. The Night Cycle, class mechanics, and combo debuff system came online during November's livestream, and now we finally got a glimpse of the in-game world map, inventory, trading, and looting systems, as well as a very small tease of some itemization, as they did confirm they finished the stat refracture very recently too. 2. This is what open development is, and the way they presented the livestream this month, starting off with some basic gear, then going through the elite area, looting equipment off the bosses, existed for a very specific reason: to show that the looting and itemization mechanics were online and functional. This is a massive step in progress that everyone seems to be sweeping under the rug here. Every month, this game is looking more and more alive and playable.
Yeah, I think most people who actually know anything about games would agree.
And if you think Alpha 2 isn't coming this year, well, you're probably right. But that doesn't change the fact that these systems are coming online at a rapid pace. I feel like there's a constant need to remind everyone that this is an open development game by an indie developer. These showcases we see are made by...
Technically indie, but I would not put them at the same level as almost any other indie developer out there. It's just not the same. But yeah, no, I mean, it is going to be what it is. Any game that shows trailers and stuff like that for their game, they always have to put in there not the finished product or something like that, because people do need constant reminders dude, this isn't finished, this is work in progress.
By passionate people trying to make the correct choices based off our feedback. They simply don't have the experience or budget the soulless corporate publishers have been utilizing over the last 10 years of NPC assimilation. And
well, the experience one, I think they kind of do, because let's be fair, it's not like the MMO experience helps a lot of people, because most MMOs don't stick. But in terms of money, I thought they were pretty damn good with money. There was no signs of them having that issue of just running out of money. I could be wrong. How many people are actually on the Ashes of Creations team? Let's take a look. Ashes of Creation team size. As not team, dev. Developer dev team size. So you see what I'm saying? Over 120 people is not really an indie game. So I mean, I could be, I don't know where this is from. It says the wiki. I'm assuming they at least got a ballpark figure for it. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, anytime it's it doesn't matter. How many people work at Intrepid? 11 to 50. That doesn't even, that's such a huge, difference. I don't know if I trust that. Yeah, it's hard to say, but I would say they definitely have more than, a dozen people working on this, I would assume. If I had to ballpark it, yeah, I mean, probably at least 50. But it is hard to say. I don't know where you would exactly get this number. But let's say between 50 and 120. I think would be safer to say. That's not really an indie development at that point. I'm just straight up. At least not when you think indie, you're not thinking that big of a team. Because even studios don't have that big of a team. Some of them, the smaller ones. But a lot of them don't call them indies. So... I mean, they're not AAA. I think that's maybe what he's referring to. They're not AAA, but they're not exactly indie either.
I don't even want that. This is why Ashes of Creation is different. Stephen, Margaret, the developers within the showcases themselves actually sound human, you know? The recent Elder Scrolls Online reveal with Apocrypha, I don't know, I forget the name because it's so forgettable, was a laughable display of corporate shilling. Watching their lifeless, soulless attempts to speak to us as players was borderline embarrassing to anyone with 2 IQ points to rub together, and if this constant
some of them are
towards
just
Intrepid's presentation continues, you will be pushing them down this route.
Because it's fake.
Yes, give us your money, piggies.
Our response to the live stream,
I think it's messed up though, because it's ESO is actually not a bad game. So I don't know.
What shaped the future of their presentations, because Intrepid obviously want to improve and do the best they can, but this isn't the way. Bringing up concerns with the tank showcase was the right thing to do. However, seeing all social media platforms completely burst into flames
What social media is this? I don't recognize this format. Is this how Twitter looks? I don't think so, right? Or is this Reddit?
Full of nothing but hate and mockery is not what this project is about. It's okay that Ashes of Creation.
Let's read some of these to see if he's actually talking like as if there's a thing. Art style too forgettable. That's an actual legit thing to comment on. Like, I think anyone who saw it would almost agree because like the art style just wasn't that good. And Trebus Repertoire is showing the visual effects sliders within the next couple of months. Yeah, because their effects were too bright. So I think that is a concern for a lot of players. So that is something like they're not just bitching to bitch. VFX, player inclusivity and impact gameplay. I don't know what that is referring to, other than maybe the effects. Active and perfect blocking. Yeah, that's also something. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that. UI, yeah, they showed it, so you can comment on it. Weird scaling issues. I don't know. I'd have to look at it to see what they're talking about. I think the tank showcase was good. That's positive.
Platforms
okay. Input equals wiki description, output equals arts. I don't think it has anything to do with it.
Completely burst into flames.
Visual noise and visual migraine induced by, yeah, I think that's fair. Like, I completely agree with it though. Like, if you saw the video, like, there were some obvious issues, such as the visual effects just being freaking bright as hell, like super just bright for no reason. Like, they weren't like, at least to me, like, visual effects should not just be like, how bright can we make it? See here, any basic roadmap, tank block,
it's full of nothing
tangents, but hate. Updates, re-recording. Let's talk great sword. I don't know if that's positive or
and
negative.
Mockery is not.
And it's like the same thing. But tons about the class still up in the air. I would agree there. Yeah, there's a lot about like the tank itself that like basically it wasn't really much of a showcase other than like an extreme surface level overview of what tanks will be responsible for. Let's see here. Did they really just do a tank presentation when clearly there's no threat mechanic implementation? There is a threat mechanic. It looked annoying. Like, it didn't look good. But there was definitely a threat mechanic in the game. So whoever this is just probably didn't even watch the video. Tank preview stream was a disaster, and here's how I can make sure it doesn't happen again. Okay, that's just a dickhead. Like, I wouldn't even bother looking at that one, to be honest. What is such shit show? Yeah, basically top guy. And those are really the only two that were like, well, three, I guess. This one, and this one.
Hey, that Ash.
Unveiling the tank archetype. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Planning to be a pirate. Nothing wrong with that.
Of creation is.
So yeah, out of everything he's shown, there's only like 3 like negative for no reason posts.
Isn't for you. This isn't.
Oh, then I saw another one. Does Ash's creation have an identity issue? Maybe they have a point. It's hard to say without looking into what they're saying.
Action combat high skill cap MMO. You have action combat MMOs already, and they're dog shit. That's why you're following Ashes of Creation. This isn't.
No. That's like a really stupid argument. If you're following Ash's creation, means you're a fan of MMOs. Just doesn't mean like every other game out there is dog shit. Any new MMO, even when WoW was like doing well for itself, you'd still at least kind of pay attention. Like if you're an MMO player, I think. Because I got Aeon, and I'm not just saying me, like everyone I knew who played MMOs would always at least try the new MMO, you know? Like, it's pretty rare that an MMO player would be like, yeah, I'm not playing any other MMO because this MMO is just so perfect. It's like, okay, that's just weird.
A PvE instanced MMO with zero challenge or social aspects. You have looking for group or.
So with World of Warcraft, zero challenge. Have you done the Mythics yet? Mythic 20 plus and the raid in Mythic? If you haven't, and from what you've shown in your previous videos, you're not like a top end player, man. So I don't know why you would bring that up. Like, that's kind of a weird argument.
already, and it's dog shit. That's why you're following Ashes of Creation.
It really isn't.
This isn't a safe space, non-PvP open world that keeps you playing with daily gated content and participation rewards. You have that already. And guess what? It's dog shit. That's why you're following Ashes of Creation.
Like I said, that's an extremely stupid example.
Let the developers who know
Like,
what they're doing do their job. You
they know what they're doing, but obviously not that well. Like, that's why they have feedback. If they thought that feedback was pointless, they would not be releasing these things. Comments would be disabled. Like, they wouldn't want any feedback. PTRs wouldn't even be a thing. Like, but they do. They have alpha testing and stuff like that. Why? Because they want feedback. Like, I think that's just a really stupid argument from Narc. Like, I'm not saying developers don't really know what they're doing. Obviously, they do. But I do think that there's a lot of things that may look good on paper from a developer standpoint, but when you implement into a game from a player standpoint, it's just not fun or engaging.
need to stop pushing your preferences onto this game. Feedback is okay, obviously.
You do it too. With the whole open world PvP, what if Steven Sharif just one day announced, yeah, we really looked into it, we couldn't figure out a way to resolve it, so we're just going to get rid of open PvP? Like, you would lose your shit. Because to you, that was like an actual core feature you really are looking forward to. So I don't think it's really right for you to, like, say other players can't express their concerns about the game.
I have my opinions on active blocking, I have my opinions on action combat, backed up by proof through history, I might add, but this influx of hate that's been attacking the project ever since October last year, since all that PvP drama happened, has pushed my patience over the edge. What you're trying to do is change the game's core philosophies. You're trying to make it the same as all the corporate garbage we have on the market already. Most of you have no frame of reference when it comes to what makes an MMO good.
Neither do you. You've never made a good MMO, Narc. Just stop, man. Like, yes, you've played MMOs, some you like, some you hated. Does that now make you an expert on what makes a good MMO? I doubt it. Just straight up. I'm not an expert on what makes a good MMO. I can see what things have worked, but then so can developers. It's not like you are unique in that aspect. Anyone who's even somewhat into the genre will know what has worked and what hasn't. And even then, some things that may have worked before doesn't mean it's always going to work. It's just how it is. It's like some MMOs that try to like go old school, they die, man. Nothing happens. Because yes, it worked back then, and it's still maybe working in like OSRS, but like people who want that are playing OSRS. Why would they play the new MMO? And I really don't like how you're having this like weird parasocial relationship with like the developers on like you think you know what they're thinking, you think you know what their main goal is. Yes, they've announced some of their like objectives that they want to kind of lean towards. But even Steven Sharif was like, look, we're going to try it. We're going to try to see if we can make it work. But obviously that means like if we can't, then we won't implement it. You know what I mean? Like he's willing to like work with the players because he understands from a player's perspective as well, is that players are going to be your lifeblood of your game. Like if the developers make the game they want and is perfect in their eyes, but no one fucking wants to play it, it's not going to do anything.
Because I don't believe anyone who thinks New World, Dragonflight, Final Fantasy XIV, or Lost Ark is good even understands the point of gaming.
Yeah, Narc is like narcissistic as fuck, dude. Like I think your name really fits you. That's okay, so can those games be better? Absolutely. No one's claiming these are perfect games. But to claim that Final Fantasy XIV is not a good game, Dragonflight is not a good game, like that's an insane argument. Like it just is. Like they're good games. They're not amazing. They're not Elden Ring. Like they're not perfect, even close to it. But you don't have to be a good game. I don't know. Like it just really seems like he wants this game to fail. Like he's just like, unless you're not even hardcore. Narc is not a hardcore. He's just a degenerate who likes to play the game a lot. Like he's not like a great player from all his previous talks on how far his guild was able to push in previous videos. Like, man, Narc really is triggering me. Like, I don't know why. I think it's because he reminds me of some people I used to play with that thought they were way better than they were, and they're not that good of players, but they think they're the best. And those are always the most annoying people to deal with in like your group. So it's like where they're blaming everyone, you know what I mean? When they're the ones like getting hit by the mechanics. So, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like the arguments really fall flat when you really like look at them, like, because he's getting mad that people are like, and a lot of those things on those posts, like he showed the posts that like talking shit. Most of them were legit like things to be kind of worried about. Not worried, but like, is that really gonna be staying like that? Obviously, they said it's a work in progress, but that is the point. He said it in the video. They want feedback. The feedback is the visual effects were too bright. That's a legit feedback. The tank mechanics weren't that good. That's feedback. You know, I'm not saying the ones who said, oh, the game's shit or whatever, like those guys, yeah, don't listen to them. But at the same time, the ones who like are legitimately saying like, oh, I didn't really like this. Like that's their feedback. You may not like it, but if Steven Sharif and like the developers are asking for it, you can't blame them for giving it.
Let alone an MMO. This genre is dying. No MMO is...
No, it's not. A dying genre would not be making millions. RTSs are a dying genre. MMO is not.
growing. They stagnated 10 years ago and have been bleeding players out the wazoo for years. 14...
No, they have more players than ever before. Like, what kind of stupid ass argument is this? Just because you're not seeing more people raiding doesn't mean there's fewer overall MMO players. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Team didn't grow. Players just moved from World of Warcraft over to it. The only MMO as of late...
Not true. I know a lot of people who started Final Fantasy XIV as their first game. For Endwalker. So, it's just not true. Are they like getting a bunch of players all the time? I don't think so. But at the same time, MMO players are for the long haul. They're not the type that are just jumping from one medium to another. It's similar to like people who are really into sports. I know a lot of people who were really into football, into like weird drama they were trying to bring up, like political crap in football, tried to move over to other sports. You know? So to me, it's kind of the same thing. Like,
that actually marketed towards a new audience is New World, because Amazon put the money into marketing to the normies, and look how that ended up.
Well, to be fair, New World had an insane amount of new players playing it. It was from Amazon, which everyone knows Amazon. The biggest problem with New World is that they released it way, way, way too early. Like, they should have had way more testing, way more feedback that you keep thinking is like this bad thing. So it's like, that's its issue. Like, take New World and not even where it's now, but give it like another year. And if they released with that level of content on day one, with multiple testing on like the mechanics, the systems in the game, which were really dog shit when it kind of released, especially like the dungeons. You had to like have this item for doing dungeons. It's so dumb. Which is like basically attunement that you had to do over and over again. If they had already done testing enough to know players just don't like that, dude, Amazon would be popping off. It already shows like it's gaining players like over time because they're actually taking feedback and implementing it. I'm not saying they're taking all feedback, but they are at least taking the feedback, going over it like, okay, what's good, what's bad, and making the game better for it. And more players are playing it. That's how it is.
If New World is...
Also, that happens with any MMO, doesn't matter how good it is, where you get a huge influx of players at the beginning and then they drop off. Because you're not going to be able to make a game for everyone. It's just not possible. You should try to make a game that appeals to as many people as you can, in my opinion. At least if you want your game to be successful. Because if you make it super niche, even if it is successful, you're not making a ton of money. PoE is a great example of that. But I don't know.
Is sitting at 30k players and our top MMOs only have 200k or 300k players. Where are the 12 million players that WoW had back at the peak of Wrath of the Lich King?
We don't even know how those numbers were calculated. Like, was that like active players at the same time? Because multi-boxing was like super common back then. Like, it's just all over the place. And that it could just been like accounts that people just weren't playing. Like, it's really hard to say what the numbers were looking like, actual looking like active players, because they never really, they didn't really have that kind of stats. They had how many sold, how many were subscribed, but from what I remember, there was never like active players, like the peak active players.
That's why monetization.
And also, a lot of these people grew up. They became adults who had to get jobs and no longer had time for MMOs. Is that the MMO's fault?
Has transitioned to exploiting us as consumers with pay-to-win and convenience, because the suits need to make up.
The thing is, like, it just makes sense though, because it does make you a lot of money. It's not about the suits. A normal average developer will want to make more money for his game, even if it means that he has to add something that isn't exactly morally good. Maybe there are some developers that won't do that, but the majority will, just because who doesn't want more money?
For the loss of players by replacing actual well-made gameplay with more and more egregious ways to increase revenue to show proof of profit to their shareholders. They don't care about the game or us as players, they care about...
Well, the developers do. Like, the thing is, they're not there to care about the players. They care about the players in terms of the players spending money, because that's what they need the players for. They don't need you to play their game. They need you to give them money. So it makes sense why that it's just how it is.
Profit. The Dragon...
Why would the shareholders have those people in that position if they weren't in the interest of the shareholders? That's the problem.
Flight and Elder Scrolls Online announcements were a complete joke in terms of presentation, soulless and appealing to players who want to be monetized, not players who want a genuine...
How is Dragonflight going after people who want to be monetized? Like, that is so stupid. There's nothing in there that's like, you had to buy a dragon, then maybe. Like, the only way you can do the Dragonflight is if you were having to pay real money for the dragons. But no, you just pay your subscription. And WoW's always been that way. You don't have to spend any extra money outside of your subscription to get the full WoW experience. It's so... oh my god. Especially once the trading post releases. I don't know, man.
Well...
I think Narc is just like so far gone in his hatred for every MMO that he can't be objective anymore.
Made massively multiplayer world, just a chore simulator so they can log in daily and be told they're doing a good job with achievement pop-ups and free epics. My comment feed ever since October has been nothing but garbage, and I'm sick of seeing it. Dog shit takes like tab targeting sucks despite literal proof showing otherwise, takes like the graphics look like something from 10 years ago even though it's utilizing the newest graphical technology on the market right now, and that this project is still a scam.
Well, that's not really much of an argument, because there are, like, the ground and stuff kind of looks like shit, man. Like, yes, the foliage looks good, and even the walls kind of look bad. Like, look at that, it looks like PS2 graphics. But that's also cases where you should just ignore those, because you know why those don't look good. Because the game's nowhere near release. Why would they be focusing on making that as like a super high fidelity? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Despite the progress they've made over the last year, how can a project that is putting time and effort into abilities affecting the grass be a scam, for fuck's sake? Get a grip. Ashes of Creation is our chance to finally have a real open world next generation MMORPG that's genuinely offering...
My biggest problem with this video is it seems like he's saying, don't have criticism on this game that I'm super hyped about. You can't talk bad about it because it's my game. I don't care about you normies. Don't talk about my game because what if they change it? What if it's no longer my game? Like, I hate you guys. Like, don't do this. Like, that's basically him whining through this whole video about. And maybe it's justified. Maybe he's been getting a lot of messages, people crapping on the game to him because he's like a big content creator for Ashes Creation, which I would kind of understand. I don't think he should have made a video in this mindset if that was the case. But taking a step back and like seeing it like, okay, well, what criticisms are actually legitimate, which I think is the visual effects were way too bright. The threat system seems pretty janky, but it's always a case where, yes, the game is in development. Everyone knows that. That doesn't mean you can't like put your like feedback. Like, I think that's what he's thinking, like feedback is complaining. It's like, no, dude. Yes, we know the game's not finished, but that doesn't mean we can't give our feedback on what we think could be improved.
That escapism World of Warcraft gave us back in 2004, back when games were made with passion.
Warcraft's escapism? I mean, you can do that with a lot of games, to be honest. If you wanted to, go play MapleStory. That grind in that game will suck you in and never let you go. It doesn't make it a good game.
This is Intrepid's goal. This is Steven's vision. So for Christ's sake, let them do their thing and give feedback on what you saw, not what you personally want.
That has to be one of the dumbest remarks I've ever heard. What you saw? You were just mad at someone for saying they did not look visually good. What? Dude. What you want is your feedback. I want the visual effects not to be as fucking bright as it is. I think they're too bright. I don't like it. I think the threat mechanic is dumb. I hate doing threat in any game. And I think Asmin, when I was doing his video, talked about it too. If you've tanked in games, and maybe he doesn't tank in games and doesn't realize it, it's fucking annoying. Okay? It's not fun. It's not rewarding. It's just annoying. That is the thing. At least my feedback on it was that. And maybe some of the posts are like that. Like, dude, tank doesn't look good. That's the feedback. It's up to the developer to see why do people not like it, basically. Okay, is it legitimate on why they don't like it? Should we change it? Can we mess around with it, see if we make it feel better? Because it's like, if all the feedback is saying something is bad and they're just ignoring it, that's going to cause a lot of people to be turned off on the game. Because it's going to go back to the whole WoW thing. You know, a lot of people told WoW, or Blizzard, like, dude, the Covenant system needs to be where you can change it on the fly. Took them how long? It took them forever. And because of that, people were like, Blizzard doesn't listen. And conspiracy theories were coming around that, you know, they were only doing it like months down the road so people would keep their subscriptions and stuff like that. But we don't want that with Ashes. It's like, no, they show us this video, we give the feedback. What we think we would be better is the point of feedback.
But as usual, I am just one nerd desperate for a good MMO, and my opinion means nothing. Using the comments below. And hey, I went a bit off the rails there, but that vocal minority growing louder and louder, forcing Intrepid to take action for the first time in history, is putting this game on a slippery slope that will end up very corporate and soulless if it...
Okay, so with the video I saw, that was their retake. That one was not corporate or soulless in any way or form. They were kind of having fun, joking, just doing what they do. So they did take the feedback of, hey, you guys were too unscripted. Not scripted either. I didn't feel like almost anything was scripted. I think they had points, maybe like bullet points they went over that they wanted to make sure they covered in the video. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, they didn't immediately go 180 and were like, okay, this is now going to be completely scripted or anything. But I have no idea what the original video looks like. If this was the redo, even the redo, I felt wasn't that really well done, to be perfectly honest. Not that I'm saying it seemed really like on the fly, which tells me like the original one was just been dog shit in terms of like getting the information to the players. Like, hey, this is what we've done. This is what we've worked on. Take a look. Let us know what you guys think. These are the points of these videos. These videos aren't just Steven streaming. He's not a streamer. He's the freaking dude making the game. Well, sort of. He's paying for it. But that his point of the videos is to get people's feedback, like letting people know what's happening. So if he felt like the original video, after seeing the feedback, he's like, maybe he took a step back, looked at it, he's like, you know what, they're right. We didn't get across what we wanted to get across. Let's do a retake. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, that's another Narc video where I'm just going off because Narc has some really bad takes, at least in my opinion. Of course, you know, he has his opinion, I have my opinion. So both could be wrong, who knows. I do think that him shedding on other games doesn't really help anyone. And it doesn't make him look any better. Like, saying like Final Fantasy 14 and all those other, like every other MMO is dog shit. That's why we pay attention to Ashes. It's the stupidest argument I've ever fucking heard. Oh man, that just like blew my mind. All right. This one's gonna be not really gaming related, but it is like technology in a sense. That's why I was interested in it. So this is gonna be the FBI did something amazing. Let's take a look.
Hello guys and gals, Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today you're going to see some rare clip of me actually praising the FBI and saying, God darn, you actually did something good.
He's usually pretty, like, why aren't they doing
basis,
stuff?
I think most three-letter agencies are a little bit shady. The FBI to
Agreed.
me is an interesting agency ever since, you know, back in the days of the Patriot Act. If you grow up like me in this country, you'll notice that personal freedoms and personal security and privacy is something that has basically been eroded and taken away at a grand scale. And ever since the creation of the internet, and ever since how computers got so popular, the FBI has basically been the top-tier organization in basically destroying the personal freedoms and privacy of various individuals.
Personal freedoms I wouldn't really agree with, but definitely like privacy, 100%.
They're kind of like the cheap cyber warfare operations unit of the entire US, okay? A lot of people have this weird misconception that the NSA is filled with like crazy cyber warfare hackers, cybercom specialists, when in reality it's the FBI that pretty much handles most of these cases whenever they happen.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be.
The FBI is made up of a very large amount of talented men and women out there that have absolutely led the way of law enforcement, if you will. And to be real with you, whereas I personally disagree on privacy being completely eroded, I will just gladly say that in certain cases, they actually do some pretty solid W's. Now, to understand what's been going on, they ended up actually stopping and taking down one of the largest ransomware gangs in the last few days. Now, this has been going on since 2022, mid-2022, where the FBI infiltrated the servers of Hive. For anybody that doesn't know what Hive is, Hive ransomware is effectively one of the many gangs that exist out in the world of people spreading ransomware and making money off of it. How much money, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we're looking at around $130 million just in the ransom demands that the FBI ended up stopping. So I'm actually happy that a bunch of criminals got stopped. God darn, do I hate ransomware people. To understand just how bad ransomware is, in the past we've looked at plenty of cases of different types and strains of ransomware malware. So one of the largest ones was WannaCry, but some of the gangs that we looked at back in the day was gangs like Revil, for instance. The reality of ransomware is that it's super easy to send out. So to understand what happens over here is you got a bunch of groups coding actual malware that once you launch it on your computer will encrypt all the data on your drive. And once that data is encrypted, the ransomware creates a little key file, sends it over to a command server that's run by these criminals, and once they have your key files, once they have all the tools required to decrypt all of the
you got to pay the money before they give you the key.
Files they encrypted using their malware, they'll effectively ask anybody to give them money. So in certain cases, it could be hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And heck, if they feel like it, maybe millions of dollars. Depending on the corporation and how bad the attack is, a lot of people, unfortunately, give into the ransomware.
They have to.
Because of how much that this software can spread and how easy it is, what these companies or what these groups have started to do is lease out their software. So if you're a script kiddie, sadly, you can go on the internet, reach out to some of these groups, and effectively have them attack a target or give you the tools to attack a target. And they effectively take like 10, 15, 20% of the check on top of it. One of the best ways to illustrate this is to show you how quick and rapid this really is. So this is a malware known as ransomware. Forgive me for not having absolute expertise on what anime this is exactly from. Not that I care, But
That
at the end of
Matrix?
the day, to show you, it's a very rudimentary malware because it tripped up Windows Defender. Okay, first off, it even detected it, which, again, Windows Defender is pretty decent. It's got me installing Net Frameworks, which, again, not the best, not the most ideal. But of course, this piece of ransomware, when launched, if you ignore all safeguards, absolutely within like seconds, encrypts everything on your system under the .ransomware, file type, which is its own custom file type. Basically,
Is that
just
an
encrypted
enemy? I
everything
don't
on my
recognize
system,
it.
sent a key off to some server that probably doesn't exist. So even if there was a criminal group behind this, it does not exist anymore, meaning your files are actually gone. So again, based on how ransomware is developed, you may possibly have a way out, but generally, the more time that passes, the more things you do to your computer, the harder it becomes to unencrypt those files after an initial, attack. But of course, it shows you just how devastating it can be. Within seconds, it has completely destroyed this computer in terms of, the files on it. But let's say that it had more abilities to penetrate networks or look around your systems. It might be able to hit a lot more than just your system. It can cause
Yeah, because a lot of times, like, especially working in a business, like, you guys are on a router, like, and everyone's usually, like, maybe shared, has it where you can share documents between each computer.
widespread pandemonium. You can see that the more invasive a piece of ransomware gets, the tougher it can be to sort of mitigate it, and tougher it can be to reverse everything around it. It can be very devastating.
Well, mitigating, like, preventing it doesn't seem, it's not that difficult, but if you're not tech aware, like, if you're not, like, actively knowing about these kind of things,
And
definitely.
unfortunately, it is probably one of the easiest things to do. They found all their decryption keys and effectively offered it to any of their victims worldwide. And what they did was they took away $130 million in pending ransom. Pending ransom. That's how valuable this is. When you think about criminal operations and why these things are successful, it's because of this. I know we laugh at scams and computer malware that gets sent around, but in reality, this is the biggest business out there, especially for cyber criminals all around. It costs almost nothing to do, and when it works, it is unfortunately one of the most fruitful businesses to get into. So the FBI distributed over 1,000 additional decryption keys to all of their previous victims, and even the ones that exist. And there wasn't just the FBI that was beyond all this, too. The FBI worked with the Canadian federal government, they worked alongside various secret agencies in the US, the Germans, various European organizations, Spanish organizations, you name it.
That's a huge operation.
A worldwide collaborative effort led pretty much by the Federal Bureau in order to take down one of the largest, most dangerous cyber criminal gangs out there. Now, of course, nobody actually has been arrested. What did happen was their main servers got taken down, so ultimately the Hive group got really crippled in the entire thing. Unfortunately, nobody has actually been captured yet. But I imagine if the FBI has been investigating this hard, there's going to be some rectums that are resized in a federal penitentiary sometime in the near future. One of the examples you can always find of these kind of hacks is typically every time you've been infected, they'll typically have a text file which asks you how to decrypt. And typically they'll say, oh, your network has been breached, your data was encrypted. And then they'll give you like an onion link, right?
This has never happened to me, so I'm not familiar
Which is
with
effectively where their sales departments are and where you can find out how to deposit cryptocurrency in order to actually get
that makes sense.
Your decryptor, if you will, and then use that in order to actually free your files from this. Again, depending on how bad you were hacked and how your backup solutions work, some people cave into this stuff. Most modern operating
Yeah, because it's also not a case of how bad it's been hacked. It's like what was hacked. You know what I mean? Like things that are just, you can't just redo.
systems these days, thankfully, have some form of ransomware protection.
Or it's like, sometimes they'll do it if like the information is like really private.
Like if you're a Windows 10 11 user, there's no
Like if you're a bank.
reason not to make sure your ransomware protection is totally enabled. Because let's say, God forbid, you launch some of this software. If you don't have your actual mitigations in check, let's say you don't back up files to a cloud or have any protection, period, you basically lost all of your personal stuff to begin with. And that can absolutely be some of the most damaging shit out there. And again, if you're under the expectation this is a Windows exclusive problem, obviously malware exists also on Mac devices as well too, even though I would argue it's a little bit tougher to get them launched because of the Fisher-Price nature of that system. And obviously, even with Linux systems, nowadays, we're getting more and more targeted. So if you don't actually keep yourself safe,
if they can make money off of it, they're going to try to do it on that.
And you're just launching
platform.
things willy-nilly, passing your administrator privileges, launching scripts, programs, and something shady happens, and again, you don't have those mitigations in present, then you will lose your data, okay? Because once it's encrypted, it is severely difficult, if near impossible, to completely get it unencrypted, okay? So you're either paying up
Unless
to somebody
you're paying
that's
it.
hijacked, ransomed you, or you're starting from scratch, okay? And again, unless you're dealing with proper cloud solutions, which there's plenty of services out there for your important data, this is not something you want to basically forget, okay? Because once it happens, at that point, it's all over, okay? It's done. All you can do is sit and watch. And again, the people that do end up getting hacked, typically if you go onto the dark web, a lot of these people have their own like services hanging around on the internet where they basically publish leaks and dumps all over. I'm not going to tell you how to get to these because I don't want to publicize the information. Unfortunately, these gangs exist, and
that actually is good because, you know, like a lot of people, even people who normally wouldn't, once the information is out there on how to do it, at least accessible pretty easily, they're going to at least check it out.
This is how easy it is to effectively target these organizations. We've seen it time and time again with plenty of federal agencies getting attacked, plenty of big corporations getting attacked, and as sad as it sounds, sometimes what will happen is these people will actually attack things like the Sick Kids Hospital or something absolutely innocent in that case, where the cause of their action can absolutely harm some of the most weak out there, so to speak. And of course, even in that case, certain gangs will literally just back off and say, wow, this is way too bad for our moral compass, so we're not even going to go that route. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, to back off from it, the FBI's history in attacking a lot of these targets is rather interesting too. You know, if you ever look at FBI honeypots, there's a big history with them. But one thing that we can divert our attention to is when the FBI launched something known as AnomChat. So back in the day, the FBI actually literally sold phones to hackers. Of course, this was all undercover, by the way. It wasn't the FBI straight up going to people. They would sell them things like the Anom phone, for instance, which were basically phones like, for instance, these devices right here, where they were basically flashing them with like custom Android operating systems that effectively were loaded with their own malware, their own surveillance systems, and they could basically tap into these. Like, for instance, they had one Anom app where actual hackers, not hackers, but criminals who were operating in multiple different fields were talking to each other. Like, for instance, these guys over here, these dipshits, were talking about literally selling drugs. So here you can see, I have a cargo ship with captain on side too. They want to throw overload as they leave. So obviously drug smugglers. So once tugboats release, the pilot boats guide them out to sea. Once pilot boat leaves, we message saying throw, then they'll throw right away. Can you do this? If so, what is your fee? Yeah, they can definitely catch it. They charge 20% door fee. How many kgs, obviously drugs, can they do per time? What are the cost of goods? When can we start?
Jeez.
Is that firm, bro? Can they charge a fee instead? I have a job ready as tomorrow to pick up. It's already here. And of course, these dipshits thought, man, we're talking in privacy because the FBI literally had sold these out to a bunch of these individuals under a tertiary company, basically selling the idea of secure privacy. Hey guys, the government and the police can't catch into you. Even though the entire time these people were sharing their drug information, their criminal operations, they were using the same servers the FBI was. And that's pretty much just one case example of how the Federal Bureau gets into a lot of these criminal operations and dismantles them from within. So of course, when it came to Hive ransomware, they were in this entire group since I believe July of 2022. And ever since then, they've basically been poking around, and it took them a while to realize that this was the main operations center for their entire service. And once they found that out, they effectively jumped in and you shut the operation down, obviously seized the website, seized the servers, and then of course sent the ransomware decryptors out to various people around. Which of course, at the end of the day, is the best possible scenario that could have happened. Around $130 million of ransom completely
It wouldn't surprise me if, like, they may have, like, released their cover for some of their people who were in, but, like, I think for the deep-seated ones, they may have just let them stay. Like, okay, this is obviously going to come back up, so we need people to continue pretending to be, like, bad actors in no sense.
Thwarted, which actually blew my mind. Because up until this point, I kind of have looked at these operations as nothing too massive. But obviously, it is a pretty big industry because, again, like I'm telling you, the actual cost of doing this is very minimal, apparently, compared to the actual gains one can make. These people literally had all this ransom sitting around. And of
The
course,
actual
it's
profit is
true,
crazy.
Maybe this ransom wasn't going to be paid out. But of course, generally, I've noticed that a lot of companies and a lot of small businesses often don't have any choices. So unfortunately, even if they may not have gotten the full 130 million, just getting half of that would have put them so far in the green, it's not even funny. But of course, thankfully, the Federal Bureau got involved and shut these people down like they should have.
Yeah.
And
hopefully they get more.
Hopefully they keep doing this to more and more companies out there, more and more groups like this out there. Simply because it's sad to say ransomware has basically jumped up to this point. If you ever wonder why I haven't done like a traditional, like, hey, let's dig out this malware and check into it. Like a typical traditional virus investigation. I still like to cover malware. I still like to cover computer security. But if you ever wonder why there's not been something super traditional, it's literally because a lot of the most popular malware that exists is stuff like ransomware. And once you've seen one piece of ransomware, you've sadly seen almost all of them. It's more interesting to me to cover a lot of these gangs that are behind some of the largest ransomware campaigns, because the more and more time passes, the more and more of these cyber cartels emerge, and it's sad to say
cyber cartels. Jeez.
That some of them can make over $100 million worth of cash. And of course, this is just one sad gang out of many that exist. So ladies and gentlemen, the FBI actually did something pretty cool. They shut down a pretty massive cyber criminal group out there, and hopefully one of many, because this shit is getting worse, more and more awful as time goes on. There's more and more cyber warfare attacks that happen, more and more ransomware attacks keep happening every single day. And this is just one slap out of many that should come going on forward. Ladies and gentlemen,
hopefully,
if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's really good video. That is good to hear that the FBI is actually doing something against this, because I think cybersecurity in general is the way going forward. Like, I think a lot of criminal activity in general is leaning towards on the internet. So, not that the people want their freedom taken away or their privacy, but at the same time, sometimes it's kind of needed. Like how cops can get a warrant for your place. So, yeah, no, interesting video though. Good to hear. Okay. This is going to be Honor of King's World. I don't know what this is going to be. I just saw it and I was like, okay, I haven't seen anything like this. So, let's take a look.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Eric.
Oh, and this is by Arquez Gaming.
Here, and today I want to talk about some more information surrounding Honor of King's World, the upcoming open world action RPG that's also based on the hit mobile game Honor of Kings, and it was first announced way back in October 2021 with this rather awesome trailer.
This looks
mix
familiar,
of cinematic elements with what appeared to be gameplay elements, although at the time people did say this looked more sort of like rendered footage as opposed to real-time stuff. But regardless, since then they have of course shown more stuff, and more recently they dropped another trailer to
yeah, never mind, I have seen this. I forgot about this. I forgot the name, I should say.
To celebrate the Chinese New Year, the Year of the Rabbit. And in that trailer, we got a look at the Academy, a place that I assume we can sort of see as the game's hub world, a place we will spend time in between adventures, missions, hunting monsters, that kind of stuff. So in this video, I want to quickly recap what we currently have on this game, and of course focus on this new trailer. So if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below, let me know if you guys are excited for this game. Let me know if you play the mobile game, and of course do be sure to keep it locked if this is something you want to learn more about. But to begin with, as mentioned, for those of you that haven't necessarily been following this is a game that is being published by Tencent Games and developed by Timmy Studio. Of course, that is also a name that you might recognize because they are also working on a Monster Hunter game, a Monster Hunter mobile game that doesn't actually have a release date yet, so whether it's this year or next year, but they are working on a new sort of game that will encapsulate all these sort of key elements of Monster Hunter, but in a mobile title. However, in this situation, Timmy Studio are of course working on Honor of King's World, again based on the sort of hit mobile game, only this one, as opposed to being the mobile title,
old gameplay,
is an open
right?
world action RPG that will still be available on mobile devices, but also PC and I believe console. The official description for the game says, master a host of mighty skills as you roam this continent of vastness and possibilities. embark on a journey that will captivate your eyes and heart, experience new wonders, encounter a colourful cast of characters, and leave your mark on long lost ruins. Only the relic can grant me the answer. Get ready to embark on a fantasy journey in a world of discovery, wonder, and adventure. And of course, in the last trailer they showed, the one before the Chinese New Year one, we actually did get a look at some sort of open world exploration. The very first one they showed off did, of course, show some combat, but it was much more self-contained. But this new one shows off, you know, like a glider kind of thing, a sort of Breath of the Wild style way of exploring. It has underwater elements, you can swim around to explore.
Yeah, like a lot of the part of the game just looks pretty interesting to me. I don't think it's going to be like an amazing game, but it definitely looks worth playing.
It seems to be sort of like a grappling hook that you can use to pull yourself around, and just a vast array of landscapes really to explore. Cool. Things ranging from sort of big open forests to more sort of underground caves and ruins and sort of temples. Basically, lots of very cool looking stuff. And I also like the sort of visual style for this, how it's like a combination of sort of fantasy, but also with somewhat sort of futuristic architectural elements. And then of course, when you get to combat, things do really start to get flashy. This is hella cool. Seeing a lot of sort of fast moving actions, plenty of acrobatics, lots of sort of nice bright colors, and also between the sort of array of characters you have, a variety of different weapons, ranging from, of course, range weapons, melee weapons, even this sort of a weird Gundam-esque sort of mobile suit that you can fly around in and lay waste to enemies with a machine gun. Honestly, it looks super cool. But if we turn our attention to the new video, the new sort of trailer, again, this one was to celebrate the sort of Chinese New Year, the Year of the Rabbit, and this one shows off the
like
academy. Again, I would assume this is going to be a place we'll spend a good degree of time in between missions. I imagine you'll go here to find vendors.
That, or it could just be like a town that has like quests and stuff.
Places to maybe improve your skills, all the different kind of usual
Looks
stuff
cool,
that you find from an open world hub. But as you walk around, it really does look pretty sweet. Lots of sort of thematically fitting sort of architecture, this sort of nice blend again between futuristic elements and also more traditional structures. We see some of the different characters. We see the guy with the sort of mecha suit. We see a mage sort of casting in this big circle, maybe a training area, and we do even sort of see a big open area, which also appears to have people training there. So probably places you can go to sort of test out some of your skills.
I do like the overall like aesthetics, like how they're going with like ancient Chinese like culture in a sense, or that's kind of the feeling I'm getting from it, which I wish more games would do. I think it's a really cool theme.
Then of course it sort of pans towards the actual celebration itself. We see lanterns in the sky, characters interacting, fireworks. Honestly, it is all pretty cool. Admittedly, not a great deal of actual sort of tangible gameplay in this one, no sort of like new combat stuff. It really is just a chance to sort of show off the academy, but it does still look like a nice place to be, and honestly a nice sort of hub to visit in between missions. So for the time being, that's pretty much it.
I mean, it doesn't really give us much, but I would say it's okay for something. Better than nothing, probably, I guess. But I think the previous trailer showed a lot more, and kind of wish the new one would have showed even more gameplay. Because the gameplay itself looks really solid, so...
That's a quick little look at the brand new trailer for Honor of Kings World. Again, of course, we still do not have a date for this just yet, but the fact they did drop...
Yeah, it's probably like super... We're probably not going to say anything until next year at the least, I would say. But yeah, I forgot about this game. I'm not going to lie. Honor of Kings. I don't think World should be in there. I think Honor of Kings would have been just fine. But, yeah. I would say the game looks at least interesting enough to try. Similar to like Genshin Impact and Tower of Fantasy and Blue Protocol when it comes out. So, alright. Next video is what happened to the WoW Game Masters. I don't know. Did they go anywhere? I know they lost a lot of them, right? They weren't just as common. Let's take a look at the video. Let's see. Oh, a previous video. Give it a like. And let's give this a like. Let's take a look. Oh, and of course, this is by Jagro. I haven't really seen his stuff before, but I saw this video and I kind of wanted to check it out.
World of Warcraft has been the reigning champion of MMOs since...
You know what's funny is not too long ago, one of my brother, he got messaged by someone and he was asking me, he's like, hey, is this an actual game master? And I look at it, like he sent me a screenshot, and I'm like, no. It's just someone trying to pretend to be a game master. They were like, oh, we're going to need your password or something like that. Yeah, it was funny.
Since its release in 2004. Now, 18 years later, Blizzard are releasing Dragonflight, their 9th expansion for the game.
Yeah.
18 years is an incredible amount of time for any game to stay
It
relevant.
is.
So
Yep.
naturally, there have been many changes along the way. One big change that seemed to have gone relatively unnoticed by players is how Blizzard moderates their game.
I think a lot of people noticed it. It's just it's nothing you can do, right? Like, where do the GMs go? Like, why aren't there as many? Like, GMs don't really talk to you. Like, I don't know.
Currently, if you have an issue in World of Warcraft, you open a ticket in-game, and a support representative known as a Game Master, or GM, will answer your ticket and resolve it using the dedicated Blizzard support chat. Typically, GMs are responsible for things like missing item restoration, reclaiming hacked accounts, and general day-to-day player issues. Back in the older days of WoW, however, things were done a bit differently. Old-school GMs still resolved player issues, but they did so in a much more direct and involved manner.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
GM was more akin to being an in-game god as opposed to a faceless support rep.
Yep.
Game Masters controlled an in-game character and would often roleplay as someone living in Azeroth while resolving player issues to maintain immersion. These characters could do incredible things, such as teleport themselves or other players anywhere in the world, transform into or spawn any creature or character in the game, instantly kill everything in a 30-yard radius, and tons more. This created some incredibly unique scenarios for players who had the lucky and sometimes not so lucky chance to interact with them directly.
Yeah.
Searching YouTube or old WoW forums, you can find some fun encounters that players had with these GMs, such as this clip here by YouTube account Spavial.
Make a straight line. Straight line. Go, go. Make it harder. Go, 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 go.
You can see the Game Masters having fun with the raid group, transforming the players into animals, egging them on while doing nothing to help fend off mobs, and eventually spawning a giant chicken for them to fight.
Dude, that's so funny.
Once these encounters started getting posted online, we began to see more and more players share their stories about their interactions with GMs. Screenshots started showing
That's
up on
really cool.
forums that showed how some GMs would tell WoW-based jokes.
I wish Blizzard would do that, like with both retail and classic. Is just have like, you know how they have people like events organizers in a sense. You know what I mean? Like they spawn a unique world quest, and they're like doing stuff during it to make it more like active. I think it would be really cool.
Gift players would
Like maybe not like they're not the ones who resolve issues, but they're the ones who are paid by Blizzard to go on the servers and try to make things fun for the players.
Items and just be nice to engage with. It was a fun, unintentional addition to the game where getting to actually see a GM back then felt like running into a legendary character. Almost like these real people became part of the lore and story themselves. This feeling was further reinforced when players started to hear about the GM Island.
Well,
Having a GM
yeah, I
as a
remember
friend
this.
or
That was
using the
funny.
/who command in the game would reveal that the GMs were frequently in a zone called GM Island. It wasn't long before players found where it was located and began hypothesizing what they would find there. Getting to GM Island became a game of its own for some, separate to the actual content in WoW.
Yep.
There were some photos and forum posts that claimed to have successfully made the perilous journey, but it wasn't until 2007 that we would get video evidence of someone exploring the island. YouTube user Patchy-chan uploaded this video titled Going to GM Island and Getting Banned. This seems to be the first legitimate video uploaded to the internet of a player reaching GM Island on a live server. They claim to have done so by using a model editor. This is a program that could spawn in solid land underneath the player even though it isn't actually there in-game.
This I can see why you got banned.
GM Island in a decent time and avoid the fatigue damage that would usually kill players. So now that we finally got a video, what was on this Fable Island? Honestly, not much.
Yeah, I wouldn't think
the
so.
The island contained a small dock that was at the foot of a path which led to the GM Mansion, a large house using the model from Stormwind City Command Center that was surrounded by a unique wall. A small graveyard by the shore and trees filling in the rest of the island. There was also the Interrogation Room. This was a textureless room hidden deep below GM Island that's been theorized to be intended for interrogating cheaters or repeat code of conduct offenders. As it turns out though,
That's funny.
GMs were never actually able to access this room.
That's almost something that you would think from OSRS.
And almost all of the examples you see of its use online come from private servers.
Yeah.
While a fun rumor, the GM Island was really just a spawn point for Game Masters. Although, to honour the impact the island had on the WoW community, an official short story was written about two GMs named Ari and Tuskfire, who lived on GM Island. These characters appear nowhere in-game, and this seems to be the only reference to GM Island and Game Masters within official lore. Unfortunately,
That's
as
interesting.
of 2019, the GM Island has been removed from all official versions of the game and is now only accessible on private
Well, that makes
servers.
sense. Because GMs aren't really a thing anymore.
So what happened to the WoW Game Masters? And why don't we see current Game Masters interacting with players like they used to?
Corporate?
Well, turns out things got a little out of hand with the whole displaying their awesome power for everyone.
Of course. Let me guess, someone going on a power trip.
According to this Reddit post by a previous GM, some Game Masters became obsessed with the attention that came with these player interactions, and began bending over backwards to appease them. A website called WoW Blues, which was a fan-made site to track any and all GM posts known as Blue Posts, became the hub for talking about Game Master encounters. To quote Reddit user Ektar, "With WoW Blues, GMs also for a while became obsessed with getting their name on it. There was a vicious circle of one-upmanship where the customer care was a bit too much make them happy, rather than educate and help them.
I guess that makes
Player
sense.
responsibility went out the window, and it was assumed that GMs would do anything and reverse any action. This all added to increased queue times and a kind of self-generated taken-for-granted element of the player base. When you're working on restoring 3 hacked accounts and the guy beside you is turning a raid into leper gnomes, you start to get a bit frustrated.
That's
This
that's
behavior
understandable.
created a precedent among players.
That's why I said like it should be like a different job, like a different position in WoW. I'm sorry, Blizzard, where they have people specifically acting as like almost like mascots of the game, where they're just there to try to make players have a bit more fun. You know what I mean? Make the world a bit more interactive.
Who expect the GMs to be able to do anything they requested and would get upset if told no. The increase in
Like,
ticket
can you imagine if like if a GM does like a world quest, like it's in the like it just shows up on your map, but it says like GM or something, so you know it's like an actual person doing it, and you get there and it's like a freaking chicken raid or something like that. Like, I think just something fun. Like, it doesn't have to be serious. Maybe they give out, you know, normal world quest item level stuff, like what 385 or 386 or something like that, or whatever it may be. You know, just have fun with it.
Response times and growing demands from the players became very problematic for the support staff. This obviously reached the higher ups at Blizzard, and so new and more stringent regulations on player interactions were introduced. A new support system was also brought in so that GMs didn't need to be visible to players as a character anymore.
Yeah.
A current system that is still in place today. No longer allowed to create these amazing displays for players, the mysticism behind GMs began to fade, and their once awesome power fell into obscurity. Game Masters are still very much part of the game, only it's unlikely we as players will ever get to see them in action again. We still get snippets of their old ways from streamers and content creators, but those will be very rare and isolated situations.
Yeah.
For now, they'll remain in slumber, banning, restoring, and waiting for the day that they may return to their former glory.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think it should be up to game masters, because I think there should be a department that handles like, you know, actual issues. While there should be a separate one where it's just like, yeah, you guys are just, you know, you have a passion for the game, you like being interactive with the community, like we're going to give you these like unique powers and just have fun with it. Maybe have like someone above them who has to like approve anything that they do just to make sure they don't go too out of hand. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I think the game would be much better with something like that, personally at least. That was an interesting video. Okay, so last video for today. Is there any hope for Halo? I think most people lost hope in Halo when Bungie left. I'll be straight up honest. I've not been interested really in Halo since then, and which kind of sucks because I don't think Destiny was even that good. Like, I was pretty disappointed in Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, which kind of sucks. But hopefully, I don't see it, to be honest. I think because didn't they mess with like the Forge system as well? Man, I would say no, but let's see what Thakman has to say.
What's up, everybody?
which is a shame. I think a lot of people, including myself, have like really, really fond memories with the Halo games, and it's kind of sad to see where it's at now.
What's up, everybody? This is the Act Man here, and today it's been a while since my last Halo video. Let's check in on how things are going.
12 seconds later.
Joe Staten is leaving the studio to rejoin Xbox Publishing.
No, God!
It's done, bro. It's done.
No, God, please, no!
Joe's gone.
No!
Joe is gone.
No!
Joe Staten has left 343.
It's not fair!
This is a studio that was hit especially hard by the layoffs, and it's raising some concerns about the future of the Halo franchise.
Yeah. Legit
Can Halo
concerns.
just catch a break, man? Like, the bad luck should have run out by now. Unless 343 was built on an Indian burial ground.
Sometimes that is better.
Given the events between the release of Halo Infinite and now, I think we're all a little bit worried about the future of the Halo franchise. This is a topic that we've rarely discussed on the channel. Yes! As I'm sure you've heard, bad news. Microsoft and many other tech companies have announced loads of layoffs in preparation for a recession that, once again, I'm sure Obama is responsible for. Damn you, Obama! But there's quite a few angles to this story, and I hope to cover them all. More importantly, I hope to answer the question that is no doubt burning in so many people's heads. How could this happen to Halo? And of course, we've got other fun questions like, should 343 continue developing the Halo games? Or is it time another studio had a crack at it? Definitely a hot topic of discussion.
That's a hard one to say. Because it's like, haven't they finally started to make the game better? Everything I've heard was like positive recently about Halo until these like layoffs and losing like the lead. So, I don't know. It's hard to say. Because I think it would have been fine to let them have it for a while longer to see if they could keep that trajectory of making the game better. And if not, then okay, let's get someone else in there and see what they do.
And what do these job cuts mean for the future of Halo and 343?
Less
what is
content.
The state of Infinite right now? Are they going to unfuck the TV show in Season 2?
What are you doing?
So many questions, so much uncertainty. Now, before we jump any further into it, this video is sponsored by Bespoke. Bespoke is a website that offers all sorts of themed boxes of goodies. Every month they introduce new boxes and all sorts of awesome stuff inside them. There's a huge variety. You could get
For
a
travel?
knife set, some new boxers,
Nice.
cigars, fine whiskey straight from the saloon, and my personal favorite, the Scorch Box, filled with all sorts of amazing hot sauces. Each box contains items worth $70,
actually
but
kinda
only
interesting.
costs $49. And if there's one thing you gotta get, it's the Weekender bag. The perfect carry-on for any situation. You get to preview the contents of the box, and if you don't care for it, you can switch it out or skip the month entirely at no
That's funny. That's like almost like a humble bundle of like real life stuff.
extra cost. When signing up, you'll take a short survey to gauge your interests, and then boom, solid recommendations right there. And use my special link, bespokepost.com/act20, and enter the code ACT20 to get 20% off your first box. And use my special link in the description and pinned comment to do so. Treat yourself right. And thank you to Bespoke for sponsoring this video.
And now for something completely different.
The recent layoffs and important staff leaving 343 has left loads of room for speculation and rumor. As some said, 343 was retiring as a Halo developer entirely. Former employees have come out to speak about piss poor management at Microsoft.
Yeah,
it just seems
a
like
lot of them came out.
this is kind of a fucking disaster, you know what I mean? Now, where to begin untangling this? Well, Microsoft will be laying off 10,000 employees between January 8th and June 30th. And
That's
this
a lot of
wasn't a
people.
targeted drone strike, okay? This was blind fire into the crowd. Pretty much all aspects of Microsoft's business will be or probably have been hit by these layoffs, including their subsidiaries like the Coalition, Bethesda, and of course 343. You might have noticed something odd about this, namely the timing, because coincidentally the announcement that they will be laying off 10,000 employees comes a year to the day, exactly 1 year to the day, that Microsoft announced they were buying Activision Blizzard. Now, I'm no gambler, but that seems like a 1 in 365 chance of that happening. And to go with an age-old quote,
But as one trained in the Force, you know that true coincidences are rare.
so they're likely making room for this colossal takeover, which got
That
me
makes
thinking, how many
sense.
people work
Yeah.
at Activision Blizzard?
a lot.
9,800. Awfully close
Jesus.
to 10K.
But as one trained in the Force, you know that true coincidences
That's a really, really smart thing he picked up there. I did not even consider that.
are rare.
Now, I want to say that layoffs like these are always really tough on a lot of hardworking people that don't necessarily deserve to lose their jobs. I hope all the people who lost their jobs can land on their feet and get a new one. And please don't attack or be an asshole to anyone at 343. You know, now's not a good time to ask, hey, when are playable elites coming back? You already know the answer. It's never. So this begs the question, with all these studios and IPs Microsoft has or is acquiring,
yeah, like all of them are really, really good.
do they need as many people to work on Halo? Maybe the Halo franchise is determined to just not be as profitable, so they're pulling resources from it. You know,
I think that is fair, though. I really don't think it has made them anywhere near the money it used to.
why invest trying to revitalize this thing that hasn't worked for the better part of a decade when you got Call of Duty coming in, and Call of Duty always sells, even when everyone agrees the games are shit. It still tops the charts every year.
Yeah, because it's like sports games. Like people who are really actual gamers don't really like Call of Duty. I mean, I phrase that weirdly and wrongly. A lot of Call of Duty players, gamers, whatever, players don't play other games. They just play Call of Duty.
Now, I could be talking out my ass when I give this take, but it seems kind of odd for a company to cut jobs in a business that's doing really well. Now, I did hear from an inside source at Bungie something interesting. They said in 2008, a year after Halo 3 released, an unprecedented economic crisis hit the US and the world. Bungie ended up hiring more people and made ODST and Reach. It's not always the economy. From what we've heard, 343 has lost about 60 employees, with 30 of those coming from the art team alone. Certainly doesn't bode well for Infinite given the already sluggish pace of updates, their eternal struggle to deliver promises and meet deadlines, and provide any semblance of a live service. Most of the cuts were geared towards the campaign art and animation teams, which has pretty much destroyed any idea of Infinite campaign DLC.
Yep. Yeah, which is a shame. I would have actually got the game for it. If it was a price, I think it's free to play, but I would have played it.
Thought that was going to be a given when the game first came out, and then they just had those lame-ass story events that I think they've abandoned now.
My gear. It's not standard issue. It's necessity. History.
Neil Harrison, the former director of art management, was among one of the layoffs. So basically the art team that gave us this. The team that finally gifted us the Halo art style we have been waiting for. Are they just all gone now? It's also important to note that Microsoft is cutting 10K jobs over a period of time. This didn't just happen at once, which makes it all the more interesting to me why 343 was hit immediately. You know, like I'm just trying
Could have been out of all the departments they were making the least amount of revenue.
to put all the pieces together to get an accurate reading on the state of 343 and by extension the state of the Halo franchise. I don't think it's looking good. Now, a former 343 employee came out, Patrick Wren, and said, the layoffs at 343 shouldn't have happened, and Halo Infinite should be in a better state. The reason for both of those things is incompetent leadership up top during Halo Infinite development, causing massive...
I mean, the layoffs, it's hard for us to know why the layoffs would happen. I don't think he had any involvement whatsoever on that kind of decision. I could be wrong, but I just feel like that's not the case. But definitely that other part should be in a better state.
Stress on those working hard to make Halo the best it can be. And Jason Schreier from Bloomberg seems to agree with this statement, and it pretty much confirms what I've heard about behind-the-scenes development, which brings us to Joe Staten, our boy. While he has not technically been laid off from 343, he is leaving to resume his position at Xbox Publishing. It is a sad day. Now, technically we should have expected this since this was kind of the plan the whole time, but the timing is like right alongside all of these layoffs. The timing is just really bad. One might say sus. And to see someone like so revered by the Halo community leave at a time like this, you know, It sucks, man. Wouldn't it have been great if Joe was working on more story elements? It seemed like every time he appeared in a video is just to deliver bad news, you know? It's like, oh, what could have been? So amidst all this controversy, people started to speculate that 343 would be given the boot from Halo entirely. Let's give it to id Software. Let's give it to Infinity Ward or Treyarch or nope, fucking keep it away from Sledgehammer. Actually, let's reel that idea back. But some of these rumors garnered so much attention that it warranted an official response from Pierre Heinz, who's now
I feel like they aren't going to do that.
the head of 343. He made a short statement on Twitter that reads, Halo and Master Chief are here to stay. 343 Industries will continue to develop Halo now and in the future, including epic stories, multiplayer, and more of what makes Halo great.
I mean, that's not really up to him to decide that, but I think if anyone would know, it would be
word
him.
vague comes to mind, right? You can't say the franchise is in a good state when it is necessary for leadership to come out and say, don't worry, guys, we all still have a job. Like, we're still going to be making Halo. Could you imagine if Nintendo was like, don't worry, fellas, we're still going to be making Mario games? Like, at what point does that happen?
But I think it's also speculation, though. Like, they had to put the speculation to rest, because it's like if they didn't, people would it would spiral out of control. So at least maybe that's what they thought, so that's why they had to make the announcement. Like, no, we're still good. Yes, we lost some people. Well, they didn't cover anything else, but they're just like, no, we're still good, guys. Stop worrying.
What does it say about the state of things? Like what? Imagine, what could have possibly...
Like, Nintendo did make a statement on the Pokemon games. Like, they made refunds and stuff like that. So it's technically they also, had to do something, because, like, if the publisher or whatever, if there's, like, bad things happening about the game and the developers aren't saying anything, it's more suspicious and more, like, worrying.
Prompted such a response to be necessary. The reaction to the statement from Pierre has been interesting. You've got some people relieved that things aren't going to change and that 343 is still going to be in the loop on things, and you've got others who are disappointed, not reassured. But I also think it's funny when he says epic stories, right as the time that they're laying off a whole bunch of the campaign team.
Yeah.
The endless will return.
So we're probably not going to ever learn what the endless are. I'm telling you. With 343's...
Yeah, like, pretty much, like, once I heard about all this, I'm like, well, there goes the campaign.
Track record, this will probably be a plot point that they just kind of, like, solve off screen, and the next Halo game is going to once again reboot the story. I still to this day don't fully understand what has been happening at the studio that has caused it to be so dysfunctional, to have not a very productive or conducive workflow. I don't work there, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but there's been barely any updates for Halo Infinite despite the large workforce on paper. Player numbers are... Well, let me just put this on screen for you. That about sums it up. Even if this was in July, Infinite should not be underperforming what is objectively the worst Battlefield game ever. Then you got Microsoft's company-wide hiring freeze, which has been going on for God knows how long, which meant even if 343 needed more hands on deck, they just couldn't get them. Not to mention Microsoft being stingy and weird as hell with its practices on contracted work, which, as Patrick Wren says, is a whole other can of worms. Can I just say, Microsoft, your strategy with contract work is clearly not working out. I'm not impressed. Fable trailer came out 2.5 years ago. Not a peep since. Elder Scrolls 6.
I know a lot of people were super hyped when they released that Fable trailer, but it's like nothing, man. Maybe it was scrapped.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been 4.5 years
I'm a big fan
since
of the Fable series.
And I get that Bethesda's working on Starfield, but this is a pattern I'm noticing with a lot of Xbox exclusives. We get a trailer, and then it's years of nothing. Like, huge chunks of time, years before we get any kind of update. Like, think about this. We didn't see multiplayer gameplay for Infinite until 5.5 years after Guardians released. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not just one thing that's been holding Halo back from the glory of success. Now, I want to take this section of the video to look at some of the notable people that have left 343 in recent years. And my goal in doing this is not to point the finger and say, haha, number company bad, but rather to illustrate how much talent and experience had been at the studio and is no longer there. To offer some kind of explanation for the studio's current woes.
Yeah, because it seems like, at least with Halo, and it almost seems like the case with their other ones as well, is like they're just not doing anything. Like the management there seems to be so piss poor that work is not getting done efficiently and on a timely manner. Like, nothing against the developers, I'm sure they're doing what they can, but I don't know if there's some kind of red tape or something that's just hindering the progress for this for no reason, is what it seems like.
Chris Lee was head of production for Infinite for 2 years and has gone off the grid after leaving Halo, which I find very strange because normally a lot of developers, they don't like leave social media entirely after they leave a video game project. I don't know. But he left at the end of October 28th, 2020. He had been working at Microsoft since 2003 and was involved in the production of Reach ODST 4 and 5. Tom French, multiplayer creative director, and the head of development on Forge for Halo 5. He left December 2022. Our boy Tom was at 343 for 11 years. Twindell Hoyle, Halo Infinite lead sandbox designer, left shortly after Infinite's release. He spent 9 years with the company. Mary Olson, Halo Infinite lead producer, was with 343 for 7 years and stepped down less than 2 months after taking that position from Tim Longo, who was the Halo 5 and Halo Infinite creative director but left in 2019. He was there for 6 years. Sparth, Infinite art director, left 343 after 14 years. Andrew Witz, Infinite multiplayer lead, left the company on March 4th, 2022. He had worked on Infinite since 2019. David Berger, technical director, been with 343.
Dude, when he's going over this, like, it's just like, you don't realize how bad it is until he's like actually bringing everything out.
Since 2008. One of the lead creators of the Slipspace engine. He left just days after Bonnie Ross. Aaron Lind, lead writer, left 343. Jerry Hook, online design director, then later head of design for Infinite, left 343 on May 25th, 2022, after working with Microsoft for over 20 years. And finally, Bonnie Ross, the matriarch of Halo, who was there at 343 from its inception, and who recently stepped down after 15 years leading the Halo franchise. Not every one of these people left 343 because of some, mad Kim Kardashian type drama, but it's like the turnover rate of senior and executive staff
is insane.
It's a lot, man. It's weird looking back on some of the trailers and Vidocs and seeing like all the people who are no longer with the company. It seems to me when this many people with that much experience leave a company, there's just this massive vacuum of knowledge left in its wake. The thing is, I'm not sure how many people currently...
It's like a freaking, like a boat without its captain. It's like any kind of like structure that needs a leadership. Like if you're taking away that leadership and replacing it with someone else, that other person just doesn't step in those shoes as if they, like take over completely. It takes a while before they get into like the rhythm and the role, like, and if you're doing it over and over with all these people, it's like, dude, it's a surprise Infinite just is even what it is.
Currently at 343 have been working on Infinite since the beginning and are now working on the live service. You get what I mean? So to me, it makes sense why updates and fixes are taking so long for this game, because most of the people working on the game didn't write the code they're trying to fix. At least that's what I gather. I could be wrong. Whatever the issues seem to be behind the scenes, like why, it's not quite...
Even if it's not the code itself, it's like the ideas, the implementation. Like, just because they have an idea and they go with it doesn't mean it's just done that day. It usually takes like maybe months of work. So in the middle of that, if the new person comes in and they're like, oh, that doesn't look that good, let's change it, or maybe their vision of it isn't going to be the same. Like, it's almost like wasted effort.
Coming together all the way, whatever the reasons are, Microsoft has remained the one common factor in all of this. It seems swapping people out of important roles at 343 has not produced the results they want. Infinite was delayed a year. It's been 7 years since the release of Guardians. And like, where is Infection? Like, why Why is something like Infection so hard? You know? Maybe Microsoft was always intent on killing the goose that laid the golden egg, and when they got a new goose that laid bronze eggs, well, they had to kill that one too. Just my theory. And to go back to the topic of contractors, you ever take a few minutes to skim the endgame credits? Well, if you do, you might notice that some names, actually quite a few names, have parentheses indicating what company they were contracted from. There's a lot of parentheses. Look at how many different collaborating studios they worked with and contracting companies. Airship Images, Atom Hawk, Axis Studios, Certain Affinity, Counterpunch, A Virtuous Studio, Experis, Insight Global, Lakeisha Digital, Liquid Development, Mandali Games, Mindwalk, Noir Studios, OF3D, Pixel Mafia, Red Hot CG, Room 8 Studios, Skybox Labs, Sparasoft, The Coalition, and Undead Labs. I can't even imagine the logistics behind working with that many different companies, let alone trying to get your own studio on the same page and like trying to get...
What's the point in having the studio if you're hiring that much outside help?
Everybody in a rhythm with a singular goal and a single vision of what the game should be. And if you look very closely at the credits, you might notice something very interesting. That being the section on testing, it appears that most or all of Halo Infinite's testing was done by contractors. If I'm not mistaken, a similar thing happened with Cyberpunk, and well, we all remember what that was like at release.
Exactly.
So like, if you want to find a reason, the reason I'm talking about like the workforce and the contracting,
I don't think there's anything wrong with like contractors who test the game. But at the same time, you should have some in-house, like looking at the results from those testers to make sure that they're doing their job properly, which is where 343, not 343, Cyberpunk really messed up on, like the developers. It's like, did no one see what kind of things they were reporting, feedback they were sending? Like if they did, they would realize pretty quickly, like, we've been only getting like really dumb shit coming through, like not actual game-breaking bugs.
Employees is that the biggest issue with development of Halo post Bungie has been the lack of a consistent vision for what Halo should be. Like I said, Halo 4 feels like the start of a new trilogy, and then we get 5, which feels like the start of a new trilogy. Same thing with Infinite. I think what 343 does a lot of is they incorrectly identify what the problem is and then overcorrect it. For example, think about the co-op mechanics in Halo 5 and being able to, you know, command Spartans around. Something could have been done with that in Infinite. The problem wasn't the co-op mechanics themselves in the campaign. The problem was you had 3 AI companions from start to finish, and the entire game was balanced around it. But imagine if some of that work was salvaged and put into Infinite. Let's say now you can command Marines. Hey, go get in that Warthog, drive it over here. Simple shit like that. It adds a new layer to the game. You've already done some work on it. That's just how my brain thinks. Here's a more tangible example. How about all the unused assets and hundreds of weapons they made in Halo 5? Like, where is the Mantis? I feel like the Mantis should be in Infinite. So many sandbox tools were, you know, they weren't perfect in 5, but they were good. Like the CE Magnum, the Halo 2 battle rifle. Again, things that you just think should be in the game. It just seems like 343 has a let's cut our losses and start over philosophy. And that needs to end, dude. Again, look at Elden Ring and look at Mario Odyssey and Smash Bros. Ultimate. Those games all built up to that final ultimate title that is just, that's what Halo Infinite should have been. The Smash Bros. Ultimate of Halo. 343 has had a lot of amazing ideas that they've left half-baked. And I'd rather eat a half-baked potato than a frozen one. Halo is a series that needs a consistent vision and a consistent team to pursue that vision.
We always had this vision.
I would agree. Yeah, that's what it felt like. And that's what I meant by losing leadership and like someone taking over the role. It's like they're gonna have their own thing on what they think is important.
Get-go, which is anyone can build anything.
Giving the fans the tools they can take and run with it and make it their own.
And when you've got a fucking carousel of leaders, executives, and contractors going in and out, it's hard to maintain that. consistent vision. Halo should have assassinations. The game would only be better with assassinations or playable elites. Forge should have been there at launch. Griffball. These are just staples that should be there.
Yeah.
We all agree. We all understand.
Things that were successful, especially back when like people were just modding the game.
And campaign co-op. It should just be there. Think about split screen co-op. That was the first thing they ever announced for the game that would become Infinite.
Can we reveal anything about the next Halo FPS title today?
I think the only thing that will confirm, as we do listen to fans, there will be split screen.
Liar!
The first thing we learned about the game coming after Halo 5,
Yep.
it was gonna have split screen
So many people were pissed when they found out they were canceling split screen.
co-op. They didn't even know what the fuck the title was, but they knew that. It just seems like 343 wasted a lot of time in pre-production being unable to figure out what direction to take the game in. There's so much unfinished work in the files for Infinite that we've seen. Like, people have known about Infection since before the game came out, I think. And it just feels like so much work from people has been rendered superfluous or was like a waste of time, or nobody has bothered to finish work on certain things. Like the smoke screen and the bandit rifle. It's just, making a great Halo game is real fucking hard. But that's what makes it special, you know? They set Halo up for failure.
Attitude reflect leadership, Captain.
And to see former 343 staff say that and blast the leadership, well, it indicates to me that the lack of vision started from the top and it trickled down. That's why Halo is in the state that it's in. But
yeah, it's a freaking ship without a captain. It was just literally wandering the seas, had no real destination to go to.
Come back to the main question. Is there any hope for Halo? Well, there's always hope, but I think if you're happy with the state of things, then you were naive and wildly unrealistic. Realistically, I think at this point the 343 brand is associated with a lot of negativity in parts of the community. I think it all comes back to Microsoft, in my opinion. All of this falls squarely on Microsoft's shoulders, I think. Because at the end of the day, they own the franchise, and they've owned it for a long time. They are in charge of who is in charge. Simple as that. To whoever is going to continue developing the Halo games, I just hope you have a consistent vision for what you want to do. A consistent vision of what makes Halo great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really care the vision that makes Halo great. Just a vision, and try to do the best you can with it. And whether it's sticking with just multiplayer only, whether it's adding a campaign, don't do it half-assed. Make sure it's good. That's really all it is.
Build on the success of the franchise instead of tearing it down to start anew every few years. See if you can salvage.
Yeah, because there's a lot of assets they could reuse that they just don't. It's crazy.
Some of the work and reuse certain assets from previous.
Even Call of Duty reuses a lot of their assets, at least in terms of like guns and stuff. They got like fan favorites.
Titles to make new ones feel more complete. So in conclusion, it is another sad day for Halo, 343 and Halo fans. But we will persevere. I don't know what the future holds, but I'd be lying if I said things are looking better. But thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe to the Act Man for more awesome content. Don't forget.
Yeah, no, really good video. I did hear a lot about these things, and honestly, it's been kind of depressing. Basically, it's like watching an old friend that you're no longer associated with, like just not doing anything with their life. Like, it's just kind of sad. Well, hopefully they turn it around. Maybe with these layoffs, Microsoft doesn't exactly want to get too involved and just leaves leadership as is. So hopefully whoever is now currently in charge just has a direction they can actually steer the studio towards without changing hands all the time. So you can only hope, unfortunately. All right, so that's it for today, I guess. I don't think I'm running out of videos again, so it's whatever. Maybe I'll do some games or something. Really waiting for Hogwarts Legacy to come out to check that out. That's looking really good. I think that's the only games coming out, right? Let me take a look at my Steam wish list here. Because it's there's a couple of games aren't coming out until next month, March. Not February, but March. Which is the Wukong game and there was another one I'm really looking forward to. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Of course, Steam has to update. Always updating. Let's take a look. Hi-Fi Rush. You know, I saw that. Like, I saw like videos on it. It actually looked pretty interesting. I don't think I'd personally get it, but because it doesn't seem like the kind of game. Oh, that's what I was waiting for, is the Star Wars game. Like, that one's coming out here soon, right? Let's see if I can go to upcoming. Popular upcoming. I don't recognize any of these. Total Lords of the Fallen. Hogwarts, of course. Last of Us Part 1. Might get that, actually. Yeah, a lot of new games coming out that I'm really looking forward to, so I'll see if I can maybe stream some of those. But yeah. Thanks for watching. See ya.